Greetings, everyone. Glenn Kellaway from the basement. We were supposed to start till 7:30, but I'm sitting here doing nothing, so I thought I would start up and just shoot the breeze while we're waiting for Elliott and Sam to show up. I've sent them the link. I get this going here. Bear with me. I just gotta do some setting up here. There we go. Done. Save. There we go. I think I'm done. There we go. I'm back. And I have 3 people watching. Whoever you are, please. Oh, there's Elliott. He's going to come on right now. Elliott,
Good to see you, Glenn.
hold on. My sound was turned down.
Can you
Can you
hear
hear
me
me?
now?
Yeah,
I can hear you well. Yeah,
we're good. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I hope you are.
I'm excited to have you on. I've
I love
wanted
to
to, I've
talk
wanted to
bluegrass.
talk this with you for a long time.
Same here. I love to talk bluegrass. Are we live now? Are we?
We're live. Yeah, I decided to come on a bit early. What the heck?
Okay. All right.
Sam's always late, so we probably he's 7:30, so he's going to show up about 25 to 8. So
Well, he's a young man. He's busy, unlike us
yeah,
retired.
busy. Yeah, an unemployed young man. Yeah. Wow. So what's happening in your world there, Elliott?
Everything's going fine.
Everything's good. The grandkids good.
Grandson just came and spent the afternoon with us today and headed back.
Awesome. How old is he now?
He was 2 in June.
Yeah, you're like 6 months ahead of me. My granddaughter just turned 18 months.
Yeah, he'll keep you running, man. I tell you what,
Yeah.
that's why we're grandparents, not parents.
Oh yeah. Don't you get
parents,
exhausted?
Grandparents with little children, not parents with little children, because they will wear you out.
It is exhausting. Like
Yeah.
when we like my daughter, she sometimes her sitter can't make it, and she'll come over here and do work. She works from home, so she'll come over here and work and leave us with our granddaughter for the day. Oh man, when they go home, I'm in bed in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, unbelievable! Wow, that's great. You've been doing a lot of pretty good videos in terms of some record reviews and.
I've done. That's about what I've been doing. I did the summer vinyl tag. That was fun. I don't know if you did one of those yet or not.
I haven't done that yet. No.
That was a fun one. Dylan from Noble Records started that one. But the other things I've been doing is when I've gotten some new.
Hold on 1 second. I got something crawling on my floor.
Well, I'll be interested to get the report back of what was crawling on the floor. Hopefully it's not a copperhead snake or anything like that.
Oh my God.
Well, maybe it is a copperhead snake. I don't know. Oh my gosh.
It was the biggest spider I've ever seen in my freaking life. Like I saw his shadow. That's how I noticed it.
I was guessing snake. So
I went, whoa.
Well, I'm glad you got that one.
Oh, wouldn't want that baby crawling on me. He was huge. Oh my God. Scared me. Yeah, so I'm sorry. Rudely interrupted you.
No, that's fine. I was just saying I'd been in a kind of a doldrums as far as making videos for a while there, and a lot of things going on in life, as we know, always do. And so I've gotten back going again, primarily by doing when I've gotten a new release or a reissue, doing a quick little review, and trying to keep them under 12 minutes, somewhere between 8 and 12 minutes. And I think people are more likely to watch. I tend to like to go on and on my videos. But one of the things is, when you're doing something like that, it would be great to do a needle drop. And I'd been doing needle drops. But when you do one, you're taking like 8 or 10 minutes of content, and then you're expanded into a 20-minute video or something.
Mhm.
You know, here's a track from side one to give you an idea, and then here's another track or something. You end up with a longer version. And I think sometimes people look and go, I'm not going to listen to that old man ramble on for 20 minutes. You know, maybe I'll listen to that old man ramble on for 10 minutes, but not 20. And
I agree with you. I do the same. I do the same thing. I try and do 8 minutes to 10 minutes.
Looks like Roger's here. Hey, Roger.
There we go. Hello, sir. Awesome. We got somebody.
That's great.
There's 8 people watching. I didn't know. I figured it would be you, me, and Sam, and nobody else.
That's fine. You know what Elvin Bishop said one time? They did a live album, one of his live albums, and he said evidently the crowd wasn't that large at the place he was recording, concert hall or whatever, and he said, "Well, not many people here tonight." He said, "But that's all right." He said, "Most fun I ever had. It won't but 2 of us."
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And I said, and it was dark then too.
Something
like that.
Oh man, nothing worse. Yeah. Oh my God, that's crazy. So whereabouts are you in the Carolinas?
I'm in North Carolina, and I'm in kind of the transition from the flat eastern North Carolina into the rolling hills. I'm at the truly at the line that divides the coastal plain and the Piedmont. I go in one direction out of my town, and it's flat as can be. I go in the other direction, and it's hilly.
Oh, really? Isn't that funny?
Yeah. You still are you still going down to Florida?
I haven't been down for a while. This year we haven't made it too much, and we flew down in January. That was the last time. So
well, you drive sometime.
Flying and driving.
You drive sometime though, right?
I love driving down. My wife likes flying down, and we haven't had a lot of time this year to do it. So it's been more.
Well, when you're driving on 95,
yeah,
you get into North Carolina, you go through Dunn and Benson, about midway, you know, Wilson, Dunn.
Yeah.
That Dunn is in the county I'm in.
Oh, okay. So you're right off 95.
Yeah. I'm about 15 miles from 95, 15 or 20 miles. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Well, one day we'll have to meet up.
Yeah. When you're driving down sometime, and if it's about lunchtime or supper time, maybe we can meet at the Cracker Barrel or something.
That would be awesome. Yeah, that would be very cool. There's nothing better than a vinyl community meetup. It's kind of fun. And I know Sam wants to get together and do some picking one of these days again. Don't drive on 95. Terrible neighborhood.
You're right about that, actually. When you get off the exits, it can be kind of rough.
Yeah. Are you anywhere close to where Earl Scruggs would have been from? Wasn't he from
Shelby? No, he's from the foothills just before you get into the mountains, around Shelby.
Shelby, yeah, that was the name of the place, yeah. But where is the Earl Scruggs Museum?
I think that's up around Shelby somewhere, right?
Is it?
Right in that same county, at least, if not.
You've never visited that?
I have not.
Yeah, that's kind of on my bucket list.
They're doing a Earl Scruggs, maybe Earl Scruggs Foundation festival or something.
Oh man,
somewhere up there I've seen advertised, and
the lineup for that festival, I would kill to go to something like that.
Oh
yeah, man, that everybody's there.
Yeah,
I wonder if that'll be an annual event.
I think it is.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, one day we'll do that. Yeah, I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag here, but I was going to do it on a video, but we sold our house, so I will be vacating this basement at some point in September. I'm not sure the date we're leaving yet, but we're going.
Are you moving? You're in Toronto, right?
But it's not finished, so now I got to kind of figure out my whole music room thing.
Are you moving to somewhere else in?
No, we're only moving like 10 minutes up the road.
Okay, and you're in Toronto. Are you in Toronto?
We're about I'm Toronto born and raised, but we were about it's an hour and a half probably to Toronto, the east end of Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're pretty far east of it. So, yeah. You go there now, I can't, I was a city kid, never thought I'd leave the city, and now I go there and it's just overwhelming. It's like too many people, too many cars.
I believe Alex has joined us.
He has. Look at that.
Hey, Alex.
I bet you he's drinking a beer.
He should.
PBR?
He ought to be.
Yeah, he should be.
With the
And
name.
Sam will be here in about 10 more minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah, we're going to be talking bluegrass music tonight. Was this kind of ingrained in you as a baby, or did you have to search this music out? Like, what was the music scene like when you were a kid? Was it the same Beatles and everything, or was it all?
It was all those things. What I remember from my preteen years were musically were your garage band type stuff, your top 40, and we would have like the JCs would do a 4th of July festival, and every little town would have a little festival. So you would have bands there, and usually there would be a bluegrass band that played, and there would be a teenage rock band. You would, be playing, stuff like Brandy. I reckon that for some reason that song sticks out in my mind. And on the television, we had some local music, TV shows and things like that. And some of it was bluegrass, some of it was country, some of it was even rock and roll. Come to think of it, I've actually got a collection from a record collection I bought from there was a guy named Homer Briarhopper, and he had a weekday morning show, like 6 a.m. every morning from the Raleigh station. And they played everything from country to rock and roll, and bluegrass was in there as well. And so you got a real mishmash of different things. I ended up buying his record collection.
Wow.
He had passed away many, many years before. His show ran from the beginning of television, local television, maybe in the area, maybe 1958 or 57, something like that, into the early 80s. So he did it for like 25 years. And
was this a big station? Like lots of
it was the Raleigh TV station.
Yeah.
So
cool.
And he had a nightclub outside of Raleigh, the Briarhopper Club. And what else could you name it if your name is Homer Briarhopper? Which was a country music club, and he did personal appearances a lot. And I got some memorabilia, some stuff like the receipts from a live show he did where they, the totaling of how many tickets they sold adult.
Oh yeah.
And like the adult tickets were like 50 cents and the children's tickets were 10 cents or something like that, things like that. And 179 people went to the show and paid to see it, things like that. All kinds of interesting. I actually bid on his.
What year would this have been that he had the club?
In the 1960s and 70s.
Okay.
And maybe, I think he died in 1980. So 60s and 70s, he would have had that club. But I actually bid on his stage suit, his suit coat and slacks, they weren't rhinestone, but it was a decorative stage suit. But I was able to go to the estate. It was his daughter-in-law had it. Her daughter-in-law was still living, but she was moving to the beach. And so she auctioned all this stuff off that she had inherited from deceased husband, who was the drummer for his dad on the show.
Oh,
actually.
wow.
And so he had all his dad stuff. There was all kinds of interesting stuff. I bid on that stage suit. I went in and tried it on. In fact, tried on the coat. It didn't fit. He was a smaller man than I remembered, but it went for something crazy, like thousands of dollars.
Really?
I did like $75 for it or something like that. But I ended up getting his record collection. So I got, and he was friends with he played some bluegrass along with country. He wasn't a pure country or pure bluegrass artist, but he played. I got like 25 of his 45s, that he put out, that he would sell at his shows and stuff like that. Different little things like that that were interesting. But when we were teenagers, we used to have a Bluegrass Festival. Maybe we'll talk about this later in more detail. But he was one of the artists that would play there, and one of his guests or regulars on his TV show was Clyde Moody, who used to sing. He was lead vocalist for Bill Monroe prior to Flatt and Scruggs. He's somebody that had hits. Shenandoah Waltz, I believe, was his big hit, and Cherokee Waltz.
Okay.
And so he was maybe he seemed like a real old man at the time, but he was probably a 40-year-old man. He had left Nashville and come down to do a steady gig, working on the weekly show. There's Sam.
Hey, everybody.
And he would they would do the TV show at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 to 7. Then he would go to the mobile home sales office and he would sell mobile homes all day. And then in the evening, they would have shows that they would do in the general area. It might be the opening of a supermarket, it could be any number, or it could be playing a schoolhouse or something like that. But,
that's really cool. Wow. Were any of the records like autographed, or was any rare?
Yeah, Osborne Brothers. I got several. I got more Osborne Brother records. He was really good friends with the Osborne Brothers.
Wow.
I got more Osborne Brother records than I know what to do with. Some of them were autographed. Some of the other artists were albums were autographed. But something I found in record collecting, crate digging, musicians in general don't take good care of the records.
Oh, really?
A lot of them were in rough shape, really rough shape. It's like I
didn't take good care of my records when I was 10 years old either. So.
Like I guess they take it for granted a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of the musicians I know that their stereos aren't. They're the farthest thing from audiophile when it comes to stereos.
Yeah.
And oftentimes their records are not treated very well.
That's funny. Ladies and gentlemen, Sam St. John is on time. You must have been excited about doing this, Sam. You're only 1 minute late.
I saw y'all went live about 7:15. I said, good grief, they're just talking about me first.
Yeah, we just, what the heck? What are you going to do?
I was on time. Yeah, I was finishing up.
Caught up with some comments here before we kind of introduce everything. Art's here. Nice to see you, Art. Alex says hi. Richard. Alex says hi to Richard. Yay, Sam finished his hair and makeup prep. There we go. I noticed Alex said he's cutting down his drinking. He's only drinking now when he's alone or with someone.
I was just reading that. Yeah, and it's just 6 days a week now, too.
Yeah.
Good.
It's 8 days a week. Yeah.
Was it George Thorogood that said, I drink alone? Yeah, with nobody else.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
Yeah. How are you doing, Elliott? It's good to see you.
I'm doing well, Sam. I hope you are.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm the only one who doesn't have an accent. I got to figure this out.
Oh, you have an accent.
Yeah. Hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys don't have an accent. I do.
You just ooze Canadian bacon and syrup, Glenn. Yeah.
I just keep trying to tell all these people in the vinyl community when they talk about my accent, I do not have an accent. I sound like everybody else around here.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the rest of you guys that have accents.
Yeah, we all talk funny.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's right.
Especially Canadians. That's awesome. So we're talking bluegrass music tonight for anybody there. We got 16 people watching, and I thought that's about 15 more than I thought we'd get. So
I
I
thought we were
appreciate you
talking.
joining us.
I thought we were talking hair metal. I was prepared for something
Yeah,
else.
yeah. So
I will
we were
try
just
not
talking
to
to
ruin
Elliott about
everybody else.
before you came on about what it was like when he was a kid. Like I would imagine growing up in bluegrass country that you'd be hearing it like the way I heard the Beatles or something when I was a kid. But it sounds like you had a good blend of everything.
Never underestimate the power of top 40 radio. I mean,
yeah,
it influence everybody.
Yeah. What about Roanoke, Sam?
Well, yeah, I'm here in Southwest Virginia. So as a kid, I mean, there was a family camp that I went to over the summer, especially Labor Day weekend, and they almost always had a bluegrass band for a couple of nights as like the entertainment. Usually, local people, friends of somebody that worked at the camp, or people that went to like a church down the road kind of thing, and they were a gospel bluegrass group. Some of them were really good, some of them were really bad, because I've found that with bluegrass, it's either really good or it's terrible. There's some terrible stuff out there. I mean, there are local AM stations down here still that play like a special show on Sunday mornings, just in like a little 5 or 10 mile radius that you listen to. If you're like, I often drive to the beach with my grandparents. Like I carpool with them, and there's one particular spot, Galax, Virginia. I'm sure Elliott's heard of Galax.
Oh, yeah.
The Galax Fiddlers Convention is a big thing. There's a couple of spots where you can hear this station. It's a specific Galax station. They'll have people come play in the studio, but you listen to it for about 5 or 6 minutes and it's gone but there were hundreds of those stations around the area. And I remember growing up, going to camp, hearing those groups. I mean, obviously like gospel music around the area, which, permeates with the bluegrass tradition, is all in my area. And again, I mentioned the Galax Fiddlers Convention. That's one of the big bluegrass festivals really in the world.
Really?
People have heard about even I've heard on Bob Dylan's theme time radio hour from like 04, 05. He talks about Galax, one of his stories. So it's known for, like, kids down there are born with a fiddle or a mandolin in their hand. Same for Floyd, Virginia. Elliott, I don't know if you've ever been to Floyd.
No, home of County Records.
Yeah, which just closed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the Floyd Country Store across the street from it has Friday night jamborees. They have concerts. Sam Bush is coming there. It's just this tiny little general store. I mean, I've seen shows there. John McEwen has been there from the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. I know like a couple of the members of Old Crow have played acoustic shows there. But then also a ton of local people. There's like flat footing is a big thing there. There's like Sunday morning, like just like sit around a jam, like, picking gospel tunes on Sunday mornings when people get out of church. So, I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, it really is around here.
That's really cool.
That whole area around Galax, down into North Carolina, what's the county right there, where Tommy Gerald's from, Round Top.
Yeah.
Where he is. That's just across the border into North Carolina from Galax, isn't it?
Yeah.
I believe it is. I'm trying to call the county name, and of course, drawing a blank.
Yeah, I'm drawing. Geography is not my strong suit, even in Virginia. But I mean, obviously, like with Virginia, with the history, we can talk about it later. But I mean, we brought up, we had the Carter family in Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Down in Hilton's.
Did you read that book?
I haven't read it yet.
Oh,
I'm very slow with reading. I'm very slow. But I mean, obviously, like Bristol and on the Bristol, Virginia, Tennessee line had the Bristol sessions, which, brought about, what became country music. But also a lot of like that old time stuff was coming through there too. They were essentially field recordings of people that they brought back up to New York, and then they became a big thing. All right, Alex, that's enough of that. Yeah. I'm really way up here in Portland, Maine. Yeah.
Well, you're from generally the Roanoke area, right?
Yeah.
The first Bluegrass Festival took place right outside of Roanoke at Fincastle,
Yeah. Yeah.
Virginia, 1965. Carlin Haney produced it and had about 1,500 people show up that first one, and that started what is now has now evolved into one of the biggest entertainment phenomena in the world, the multi-day festivals. Because I mean, it's not that there were no festivals before that, but usually they were, sit down in some seats at a local college or something for a day, or Newport Folk Festival, with the big seating and amphitheater, and people went and come. But the idea of 3 or 4 days in out in a field somewhere, camping with people jamming all over the camp, all over
Campers
the
and
campsites,
tents.
parking lot, and a stage with, and I guess these big festivals that we see that are multi-genre, really, they took that as their model to what we have today. And we still have those specifically bluegrass festivals, which started it all, still going on today.
And Fincastle is about 10 minutes from me. Yeah.
That's interesting you mentioned that, because I was just going to mention it. I don't know if you guys ever read this book called Bluegrass of History by Neil Rosenberg. It's an excellent book. It came out in the 70s, I think, but it's been reissued and updated. Yeah, it's incredible. But I was open to the page to discuss the first Bluegrass Festival in Roanoke, Virginia, 1960, September 3rd to the 5th, 1965.
Yeah.
Clifton Haney. Yeah.
It seems like every decade or so, why does bluegrass still resonate with people? What has kept it going when other genres of music have faded from popularity over the time? About every decade, something comes along which spurs that resurgence that keeps it from becoming antiquated or dead. And by 65, country radio had pushed aside bluegrass in favor of the Nashville sound. And artists, bluegrass bands were still, some of them were still able to play on package shows, country package shows and things like that, but it just wasn't a healthy environment. And then that's when the folk revival draws in the bluegrass musicians and the bands.
Yeah.
And it's like
especially Flatt and Scruggs. They really
especially Flatt and Scruggs. But the Stanley Brothers did some of it too. Bill Monroe didn't do much of it. But if it hadn't been for that, it may well have died. The academics, the intellectuals, kind of viewed it more as a traditional music, when really it was modern music in 1945. It was it sprang in part from traditional musical sounds, but it's in the eye of the beholder, I guess you'd say. But so the folk boom adopted it, and as the folk boom died, the Bluegrass Festival emerges to revitalize it. And then, we get on a couple of soundtracks. We get on the Bonnie and Clyde soundtrack. Bam. All of a sudden you develop some interest. As much as I hate the term bluegrass, hate the term hillbilly, Beverly Hillbillies with the Flatt and Scruggs, who were very hesitant to do that soundtrack because of the term hillbilly being used there.
Yeah.
But Louise Scruggs, who was a brilliant businesswoman, Earl's wife, showed them and said, look, the characters in this TV show, the smart ones are the people from the hills. The other people are the buffoons, the city people. This is an opportunity for us to expand our base and build Flatt and Scruggs. And she convinced them to do the soundtrack. And, wasn't that what Bella Fleck heard?
That's where Bela
I
says
think
it
that's
was
where Bella
his
says it
epiphany,
clicked for him.
hearing the ballad of Jed Clampett on the Beverly Hillbillies. Yeah.
And then a few years later, we get Deliverance and
Mhm.
the awful connotations from that movie, but
Yeah.
still, feuding banjos, which they call dueling banjos.
Yeah.
And then we get "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" What year was that?
Early 03, I think.
2003.
I think so.
Okay, 2003. So every 10 or 20 years, something comes along which revitalizes it. The emergence of Americana music, I think, has done that in the late, in the present.
Yeah.
Provided
even the Birds and the Southern California country rock bands or whatever were also pretty influential
Eagles.
with the Dillards and
Graham Parsons and all that stuff.
They would incorporate banjos in the songs. And
well, even, I mean, the Dillards, they opened for Elton John at his Dodger Stadium show.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're if you look at the ticket, it says Elton John, special guest, the Dillards.
Oh, wow.
So imagine them playing, and then Elton comes out in that jumpsuit playing, Benny and the Jets.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so the Dillards opened.
And of course, the Dillards were on the Andy Griffith show.
Andy Griffith, which obviously, with Elliott being in North Carolina, I mean, that was big for me growing up, was, Andy Griffith and hearing that. And actually, as a kid, listening to it, because that's all my grandparents listened to was old-time country and bluegrass. I thought it was old music. I thought it was boring. Like, I didn't get into it. And it wasn't
either.
It wasn't until later on. I mean, that's kind of like you with the crooners, except you never hop back on the crooners. The bluegrass, I didn't care for. I didn't care for, like Hank Williams, even like the old country from the 50s and 60s. That I was just like, it's just not for me. At that point, I was really getting into, the Beatles and Tom Petty and all that stuff. And really, even I didn't start getting back into bluegrass probably till my mid-teens, late teens. And it had nothing, because I play acoustic guitar. It had nothing to do with me picking up guitar. It was just, I don't really remember there being a specific moment where I thought, oh, okay, that's not, what I thought it was. It doesn't all sound the same like I thought it did.
Yeah. Well, even me growing up with the Beverly Hillbillies and hearing Earl Scruggs there, then Bonnie and Clyde with Foggy Mountain Breakdown and Deliverance, none of that stuff had did not resonate with me whatsoever. It wasn't until I heard Led Zeppelin 3 and they had a banjo in Gallows Pole. Wow, the banjo is so subtle in the song, but to me it stood right out. Like, I'm just going, wow, that sounds good. I love it.
Who played it on there? Was it John Paul Jones?
I'm not sure if I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy played it. He could probably play anything with strings on it. I'm not really sure, but that'd be an interesting thing to find out who played it. I didn't know.
I wouldn't be shocked if John Paul Jones wasn't. Isn't that his name?
Could have been, yeah. I mean, they were all into folky type stuff before they were Led Zeppelin, right? So,
well, yeah. I know he has in the past gone to the Merle Fest.
And he's produced some Roots albums too. I forget what bands, but he's produced
Uncle Earl. I know he produced one of their albums. It's real good.
Yeah. But then John Hartford being on the Smothers Brothers and on the Glenn Campbell Good Time Hour, and he'd play these wacky songs on the banjo, and he had the long hair, and he looked like a cool hippie, and just that's where I fell in love with it. That was my whole thing.
Jack says it was Page that played it.
Yeah. Michael Nolan is here.
Yeah, because Jimmy Page and
we love
Page
Michael.
and John Paul Jones both did mandolin on various songs too. So like they switch back and forth on that.
I would love to see Green Sky Bluegrass.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Green Sky, they just canceled a show here for Saturday because of big weather. Well, Sunday they canceled because of weather. They postponed it to September.
Oh wow! I just picked up my first Green Sky Bluegrass album a couple of months ago, and I love it. I can't remember what I got.
I've got a couple of theirs that I enjoy. Yeah.
Oh, really good band. It was Page. He played it. Thanks, Jack. Page played the banjo in that cut and never played banjo before. There you go. Well, he did okay. I think Jimmy could probably play anything with a string on it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
talented people that are used to stringed instruments can figure something out, even if they're not playing it a conventional way.
Mhm.
I remember a guy in college that he was helping somebody out on a play that they were trying to put on, and he was a guitar player, and he said he thought a banjo would work for this particular song in the play, and he went and borrowed a banjo and figured something out and played it for the play, but he'd never played banjo before. So.
That's crazy. Well, even is it what Neil Young song? Is it Old Man that has the banjo?
Old Man. No, it's yeah, Old Man has a banjo, but I mean, there's another
Yeah.
one.
James Taylor played the banjo on. He wasn't a banjo player, and then you hear that and you go, "Geez, I'd like to learn how to play that." And you go, and it's so unorthodox because James Taylor's playing it like totally different than any banjo player would think of playing it. That I can't even figure out what he's doing.
Yeah, and they probably tune it differently so it fits a guitar player.
Yeah,
Whatever it might be.
And Molly Tuttle, for instance, the great guitarist, she was in the family band, and they needed a banjo player when she was little, so she played the banjo in the band, although guitar is her main instrument now, of course.
Yeah.
And so that frailing style of picking with the that you would use with a banjo, she adopted as she grew older and was able to play more guitar.
Yeah, I saw Molly one time open for Old Crow Medicine Show last March. I'm actually seeing them on Saturday. I'm seeing Old Crow for the third time.
Wow.
So I'm excited for that.
No kidding. That's pretty cool. Knucklehead Rocks here. Thank you. Enjoying the chat. Thanks so much. So are we. So we thought we would take each kind of pick some artists that we really like in the bluegrass genre, artists or slash bands, and kind of go around the horn here and show an album that maybe showcases why you like them or whatever. And so maybe we should get started with that. Elliott, I'm going to let you go first.
Okay.
Since you're the youngest of the group.
Yeah.
An individual artist. The first one I picked was Kenny Baker, the fiddler. They played fiddle in Bill Monroe's Bluegrass Boys longer than anybody else. And naturally, my daughter's calling me right now. I'll call her back. And I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. My phone could ring any second.
Played with Bill Monroe longer than any other fiddler. Probably the most influential fiddler on bluegrass music. He played. I'm no expert at the violin, but I know he played a lot of longbow fiddling. If you had just taken the Appalachian fiddle style, you wouldn't have got nearly that much. He was influenced by the Western swing band music and things like that. So he included a lot of different stylings of fiddle playing in Bill Monroe's sound, thus influencing all the rest of the fiddlers out there. So you didn't just get an Appalachian fiddle style, but this is a reissue that
that'd be a great record.
And it came, and this was like a $22 record or something, and it came with some photos.
That's awesome.
And a little booklet, or it actually may be the inner sleeve.
Does he have a full band with him on that, or is it mostly?
Yeah, it's full band, banjo, guitar, mandolin, and bass, along with his fiddle.
Awesome.
And this was I think it was recorded in maybe 72 or 3, something like that originally.
Wow.
And so, there was a lot of great fiddlers that went through Bill Monroe's band. Bobby Hicks would be one.
Mm-hmm.
Chubby Wiseman, I believe. And you know, you look at probably one of the saddest things or disappointing things is so many people went through Bill Monroe's band, and so little of it was documented as far as who played at what time on which record, you know, and all that sort of stuff. That, you know, we, as a person that loves history, I hate that. Now some of it's documented. I know Ralph Ritzer did some of that, but we don't know about a lot of you know, who was in the studio at this point, who came up with this idea, you know, and Bill and Kenny had a love-hate relationship. I know.
Bill had a few of those.
Yeah, he did. I know. Later in life, somebody offered Kenny an opportunity to play on with a super group type deal on a recording, and they were going to do the old Bill Monroe songs that he had recorded before, and he just passed. He passed on it. Would have probably made him a little bit of money, you know.
Yeah.
But he said, no, it might help Bill too much. You know, he wouldn't do it. So I'd say if you're looking for some good fiddling, and he's got a lot of solo albums that County put out, for instance, and other labels, but County especially. This one's called Country. So
one of the albums I was going to bring up later, I'll let Sam go next, but I want to show this now since it all ties in, is banjo player, one of the best banjo players around right now is Noam Pakilny, who plays with the Punch Brothers and also has a new project now, or relatively new, Mighty Poplar, which is more traditional, I would say, bluegrass stuff. But a couple of years ago, Noam Pakilny put out this album, plays Kenny Baker, Bill Monroe. Good. And he does the whole album of like, Jerusalem Ridge and Monroe's Hornpipe and Cheyenne and all those great tunes. It's a great if you're ever looking for something. I don't know if it's on vinyl or not, but
cool.
It's on CD.
Looks real cool.
Sam, what do you got for us?
Well, I will start off by saying I don't have physical records with me because I'm not at home. However, I do have a list of stuff to talk about. And I didn't really go in any particular order necessarily, though. Again, what I did was I picked some artists, and for people that are just like, oh, I don't want to hear bluegrass at all, because a lot of people just throw it out because they think it is, to use the term hillbilly, they think it's, not what it really is. So I chose a particular song by an artist so that it's just a small taste, like they can take 3 minutes versus 35 minutes for a full record. And so I am going to start with the Dillards. I wanted to talk about them just because they were one of the ones when I realized, they're doing stuff that's not just bluegrass tunes. I mean, they're doing songs like Walking Down the Line, which is a Bob Dylan tune. And they have a traditional bluegrass setup because they didn't have the drums, which that's still a topic of contention. Traditional bluegrass listeners say that, a drum isn't part of the main setup. It's,
it's heresy.
It's heresy. It's kind of like a piano, like when the piano started showing up as well, like Bruce Hornsby doing some stuff. It was like, what's Bruce Hornsby playing piano for on bluegrass songs, like in the 80s and 90s. But back
Sam, while you're doing it,
yeah, that's the one I was mentioning. Back Porch Bluegrass. Again, they wrote most of their tunes. The song that I'm mentioning is "There Is a Time," which is the big one from Andy Griffith. They had Maggie Peterson, who played Charlene, the sister, who wasn't in the group. She was an actress. And I mean, the Dillards are still around. It's Rodney, the lead singer and guitar picker. He's still leading a group of musicians as Rodney Dillard in the Dillard Band or something like that, because the rest of the other three guys have since passed, and they went through some lineup changes. I know Herb Peterson played with them for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Doug left.
When Doug left, and Herb ended up playing with Chris Hillman in the Desert Rose Band in the 80s and 90s. And he still played with Chris Hillman up until Chris Hillman's retirement. Just the two of them would play duo shows. And Peterson to go off on a tangent, not a tangent, but a little sidebar. Peterson played on the second Mudcrutch album by Tom Petty and toured with them on that last tour.
And
And
that's
also-
an interesting little tidbit.
yeah,
Also, when Earl Scruggs had his car accident in the late 60s and was tied up for a while, they got Herb Peterson filled in for Earl.
oh, interesting. Yeah, he's got a great harmony vocal, and he's
Yeah.
just a really talented guy, just a great, solid kind of rock kind of man. But yeah, I wanted to mention the Dillards again because they were some of the early memories of me seeing, a stand-up double bass and, banjo and mandolin. And again, it was on TV, but for me, watching Andy Griffith was just like watching, neighbors down the road. I mean, they were like people that I knew. So it wasn't like I wasn't shocked by him. And it's still my favorite show ever. I can quote it like the back of my hand.
Can I add a little something to what you're saying about that? When the Dillards first started appearing, and I think they appeared maybe 5 or 6 times. Does that sound about right?
The Darlings.
They didn't over that. One of the smart things about the Andy Griffith Show, when they had characters that worked well and were popular, they didn't overuse them.
Right.
Ernest T. Bass, for instance, was really only on 5 shows as Ernest T. Bass. And I think the same thing for the Dillards. They were on about 5 times. But we really remember those episodes, don't we? I mean, they really stand out. Well, Andy took, I don't know if it was Doug or Rodney, aside after when they did their first appearance. And he said, look, anytime we have a time when we're going to play a song, you need to present one of your songs for us to consider.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they always did this, but Andy said, if you'll play something one of you guys wrote or that you wrote, then you'll get residuals through the years. But if you just play a public domain, song or traditional song, you're not going to receive anything from it. And
what great advice, man.
Yeah. Which is funny because, Andy on the show played guitar and he would sing, but he would sing, again, traditional hymns or tunes like that, like the Fox and things like that. But yeah, whenever they were on, they would kind of joke with a couple of, fake titles that were for a laugh. And then they would sing, There Is a Time, stuff like that. Or, they did do a couple of, like Shady Grove was one that they sang, but that's an old traditional. But they did do, like Doug's Tune was a instrumental on banjo, which I know Glenn's very familiar with. Just Doug Dillard was a phenom on the banjo. But yeah, I wanted to mention the Dillard just because that whole show plays a special role in my life. So There Is a Time. It's a beautiful, just haunting tune, and it's one that I play live when I play out.
Wow,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, great song, great band, legendary. His greatest historic, Dillards for sure. I'm going to Michael's like on the psychiatric couch tonight. He said the last time he drank Old Crow. Richard saw Bela Fleck and the Flecktones at Winter Park Jazz Festival '91. Very cool. They were so good back then.
Yep.
Okay. You know what? I decided when I was going through and I was going to, I can throw out a million guys, but I'm sticking to banjo players tonight. That's all. So there's only one place to start, and it's Earl Scruggs.
Oh, yeah.
So, did Earl invent bluegrass banjo? No, there was other people kind of messing around with it at the time, but he developed it to the point where he owns it. And it's funny, when people learn how to play the banjo, they learn all these forward and backward rolls and stuff like that. And you see it all out in tablature, and you go, oh, yeah, I can do this roll and that roll. But Earl didn't learn it that way. Earl wasn't thinking forward, backward rolls. Earl was thinking just playing notes that accompanied the music and made the song better. And he never thought of it the way people who followed him thought of his playing style. And he was a genius. He was. Yeah. And I think the album that is, I wish I had this on vinyl, the Foggy Mountain Banjo album. This is all instrumental. This is kind of I would say this is probably the most important instrumental banjo album ever made. And I don't think there's a 5-string banjo player that doesn't think Earl is the greatest. I mean, it's,
when you started learning, Glenn, did you get the Earl Scruggs instructional book with
I
the
had
record?
the book, yeah. I had the record that went along with it, and yeah, oh yeah.
I've got one of those here somewhere, and I don't play
Yeah.
the banjo. I built one time when I was
Did you?
18 or 19. I got a what was the name of that company out of
Stuart
Ohio?
McDonald?
Say it again.
Stuart McDonald?
Do it, Stuart McDonald kit, and I built a banjo. I've still got it, but I
Oh, wow.
never got where I could do much with it. But I have.
That's cool. I remember those kits. Yeah.
Glenn, you gave me. I'll say, Glenn, you gave me one of those Earl Scruggs review records because he was a progressive guy.
Yeah.
When they both split up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's basically why they split up, because I mean Lester was a real traditional guy, and Earl was hearing all this stuff through his kids, and
Lester got Marty Stewart his start.
Yeah.
Didn't he? Yeah. That's when you saw him, wasn't it, Glenn? First time
I saw them, yeah, with Marty Stewart, yeah, back in like '77 or something, whatever.
Roland White played with
Roland White,
Lester Flatt.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's pretty cool. Elliott, you're up.
All right. If somebody's looking for good traditional bluegrass in a really good sounding presentation, there's a super group from the 1980s. You can, and this will get you a bunch of great artists. We're talking about artists. Banjo, J.D. Crowe. Guitar, Tony Rice. Mandolin, Doyle Lawson. Fiddle, Bobby Hicks. Bass, Todd Phillips. They just did a little project. They were doing so much experimental stuff, so much modern progressive bluegrass. And they said, we want to get back to the basics and back to what we love. And we'll do an album like that. The Bluegrass Album Band.
I need to get that.
They called it the Bluegrass Album. And it was so popular that they toured with it. And there are 5 volumes and they started calling them the Bluegrass Album Band. There are 5 separate albums.
I only have 1 and 2.
Yeah. I had 1 and 2. And then I sought out in the last few years and got 3, 4, and 5. 5 is very hard to get. I had to get it from a European pressing or a Japanese pressing. I don't remember which. There weren't many of them. But this is, you got Blue Ridge Cabin Home on here. You've got Toy Heart, just great recordings. And what's the most popular sport at the turn of the century, 19th to 20th century? What was the most popular sport? Anybody venture again?
Baseball.
Sport.
Baseball.
Not baseball yet. Not yet. But it was beginning to be. Horse racing.
Oh, okay. All right.
Horse racing. And so the
Molly and Tenbrooks.
Molly and Tenbrooks is on here. And that was the story of an historic race between two horses. I forget where each one was located, but they came together and had a horse race. It was so popular, people made songs about it. Horse racing was, the most popular sport back then. And of course, now it's just a niche sport, but it was so popular. Molly and Tenbrooks would be another example of a song. But gosh, the Bluegrass Album Band, you just can't beat it.
It doesn't get better than that. That's perfection. Well, I got to say hello to Dan, our buddy Dan. Good to see you, buddy. Or hear you, or read you. Good to read you, Dan.
Yeah.
Sam, you're up.
Well, I mean, with that album, I mean, I might as well and get the Free Bird or the Stairway to Heaven knocked out of the way early. I'm going to go with the self-titled J.D. Crowe album. Myself, everybody's favorite, progressive bluegrass album. There you go. Yeah, thank you, Glenn. That's one of the first bluegrass albums that I purchased.
And what's it known as, Sam? Elliott knows.
Rounder, is it 0044?
0044, isn't it?
0044. You don't. It's the only album I think ever made where you don't even have to say the name of the album.
That's the
You just got to
serial
say,
number.
"I got 044."
But talking about a super group, I mean, you have JD, who it's his record, Tony Rice on most of the lead vocals, and Ricky Skaggs on harmony and playing everything with the string. Jerry Douglas is on it. So, and a lot of those guys were getting their start. I mean, that was Tony Rice pre-mustache, you know. So,
Yeah.
Ricky Skaggs kind of had like a really weird swoop haircut, but man, what a record. They do, you know, Old Home Place on that album. That's the song that I want to promote, which is a Dillard's tune. You know, ironically, and I think one of those go-to campfire bluegrass jam songs that everybody knows. You like a radio show. I know Elliott is familiar, and I'm sure you are, Glenn. E-Town, the radio show that's on public radio. They always have a big finale song with all the musical guests, and Old Home Place has been played multiple times. And it's been done by, you know, everybody in the bluegrass world. It's just one of those songs that's a great sing-along tune. And again, that whole album is great. They do, you know, Summer Wages on there, the old Ian and Sylvia tune.
Great song. Yeah.
You know, that they do a couple of instrumentals on there. Crying Holy at the end, just the old tune. It's so perfect.
It's kind of a blueprint for everybody that wants to start a bluegrass band or record an album. Do something like this. Listen to this, and then be inspired.
Yeah, it shows you can play these old folk tunes, you can play these country tunes, you can play these, you know, rock tunes in the bluegrass tradition. It doesn't matter. You know, it's about the feeling. It's about how you're playing it. And plus, you have the best of the best. I mean, Jerry Douglas is the best at what he does. Ricky Skaggs, Tony Rice, they're all the best at what they do. So it's almost impossible to beat. It really is.
I think the #1 bluegrass album of all time.
I would put it, if I did a ranking. Yeah.
It would be hard to
great album
above it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can listen to that over and over again. It's an amazing record. Wow, that's awesome. I'm going to kind of stick with the old guys for a bit here. Another guy who was a pioneer. There's really 3 ways of playing a 5-string banjo. You can play it like Earl, which is, you know, with the rolls and the slides and the pull-offs and push-offs and everything that Earl came up with. And then there was a fellow by the name of Don Reno, who was with a Red Smiley and Reno Smiley. And Don Reno developed a way to play the guitar because he wanted to play leads like a guitar player would play leads. And he developed a single string style of playing. So he didn't play rolls. He played with his thumb and his index finger and would go back and forth on a string and go along and play leads like a guitarist would play. And he developed a single string style. And Don Reno's a huge influence on everybody as well. And I mean, all the guys today from Bela Fleck and Noam Kilney and all these guys, they all play a lot of single string stuff when they're playing their jazzy stuff and everything. And they all owe that to Don Reno. So that's definitely a guy who's checking out.
Reno and Smiley met in Roanoke, Virginia.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wow.
and they're from North Carolina. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Clyde, North Carolina.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah, so they have roots here. I know Marty Stewart, who again is a favorite of mine. He does a song by them. What is it? It's Country Boy Rock and Roll. I think it was a song that they did.
Okay.
Yeah, that's become a big tune for Marty Stewart to play. Just a really cool tune.
Country Boy Rock and Roll. Yep, it's on here.
Yeah. Let's watch Marty Stewart's version of it. It rocks.
Wow, that's awesome.
It rocks. Yeah.
Dan, I'm not familiar with the band organ, but they sound interesting.
Let me.
Traditional bluegrass, but
our friend Scott's joining us. Thanks, Scott. We're talking about progressive bluegrass.
We are. Yeah.
At some point.
Yep.
I've never heard the band Oregon, but I've heard of.
I'm not familiar with them, but there's so many out there that it's hard to know everybody.
You look at any of those bluegrass bills for a festival, you don't know half the bands.
Steel guitar records so popular in the 60s, you could probably get them at the soda shop. Yeah, no kidding. It did kind of come into style. The Nashville sound.
Yeah.
Elliott, you're up, buddy.
All right. Go to someone 20, the modern era, the 2020s. Molly Tuttle,
Oh yeah.
Golden Highway.
Great record.
The band she put together is top notch, and she this of the two most recent one, Golden Highway and or not Golden Highway. What's the most recent one?
Yeah.
I'm awful about names, but this was the one album before that, Crooked Tree. Excellent album. She is from that bluegrass, that hotbed of bluegrass, Berkeley, the Bay Area of California, which I say that almost trying to be funny, but really so much great music, bluegrass type music has come out of California, San Francisco, and Southern
Jerry
California.
Garcia, I mean, came out of that kind of whole scene, right? As a folk and bluegrass guy.
It was City of Gold, Elliott.
City of Gold, right? Yep, that was. And I like City of Gold, but I like this one a little bit better.
I do too.
Couple of songs I take note of. I like the humor. It's so good that when you're not too you're not too obsessed with your artistic nature that you can't poke a little fun and make a little joke and have a laugh. And she does that with this song Side Saddle. I love Gillian Welch helps around on this one, and it's just the funniest little sing along type song. I don't want to ride side saddle, side saddle, side saddle. I want to ride bow-legged like the boys. That it just tickles me. And then there's nothing wrong with sentimentality. Thank you.
Sentimentality
as well. People sometimes say, "Oh, they
I can say it, but I can't spell it."
She does this song, the last song on side 2, called Grass Valley, which I just love.
Yeah.
A song about her and her dad taking her to this Bluegrass Festival, Grass Valley Bluegrass Festival in California, and her growing as a musician. At first on the sidelines, watching the more experienced, better players, and then gradually building up her courage and her confidence and stepping forward in those jams and things like that. And it's just, it's just having a daughter myself, it just pulls at your heartstrings that she's reflecting on something so sweet and beautiful, that gift her father gave her, of music. So that's Molly Tuttle.
And I would like to mention, if people, that's a great album for people to kind of delve into this music too. And there's a lot of great people on this album, like Margot Price, who's kind of a big star right now, and Billy Strings, who's huge. He plays on it. Dan Kaminsky from Alison Krauss's band.
Dave Matthews.
Ian Welsh, who Elliott mentioned. Old Crow is on this album with her.
I take it her boyfriend is the guy in Old Crow. Is that right?
Yeah, Catch Secor. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you are. She's awesome. And so well respected in the community now, the bluegrass world.
Yeah, she's a year older than I am, so she's got a lot of music ahead of her.
Yeah, she's awesome. Sam, what's next?
Well, I'm gonna echo off of Elliott, because actually I had that exact same album on my list, Crooked Tree. But I'm glad you didn't say it, because the song that I wanted to pull from it was the song Big Backyard with Old Crow, which is about some people, it's like some people's yards are in big cities, some people's are on farms, but essentially the whole world is your backyard. We got to take care of it. And I know most of the songs on that album were co-written with Ketch from Old Crow. So I mean, their influence is all over it. He plays on a lot of it, but the whole band is on that track. And it's cool because when I saw them, they did it together. It's like, to see everybody that was on that song play it live is really cool, because she opened, then she came back out during their set, and then they sang Big Backyard with her. And they still tour quite a bit because they are dating. I know they're going to be up at Wolf Trap in Northern Virginia here, I think next month. But yeah, that, like Elliott said, that's a great, there's some fun lyrics on it. There's some, kind of hippie kind of stuff. I mean, she does kind of like a part 2 to the song Dooley, But she's talked about called Dooley's Farm on there, kind of a muddy kind of swampy kind of song, but it's cool. I mean, she has other albums. She had her COVID album she did a bunch of covers. She does She's a Rainbow by Rolling Stones, really cool. And she did that solo when I saw it because it was just her on the guitar, and She's a Rainbow, really really cool. Stop Dragging My Heart Around, she's done before.
Oh wow!
So she covers
Rancid song. I didn't know who Rancid was, but
I know what you're talking about.
Spokane, I believe it is.
Yeah, I think so.
I love that. She does a great version. I'd never heard the original. And I forget what type of, is it a trash metal band or something like that?
Probably. Yeah, it's not my.
It's not anything in my wheelhouse. She does have a new EP out. I pre-ordered it from her website. 6 songs. She's been doing, and they did a video for the Jefferson Airplane
White Rabbit.
White Rabbit.
So really,
the EP's got White Rabbit on it, and several other tunes. 6 total tunes on it. So I ordered that the other day.
Wow, I'll have
Looking
to check
forward to
that
getting
out.
that when it comes out.
Oh yeah, there's a great version of them doing that song, Glenn. Like it was Halloween, and she's dressed up as the Queen of Hearts, and like one of them's the caterpillar, one of them's the cat. It's really cool. And the band,
pull it up on YouTube. Anybody?
I will.
And her range. I mean, she gets up there. Yeah, it's good stuff. But yeah, I was going to talk about Molly too, and obviously very happy that I got to see her last year as well. Just because like that's what made me become a fan. I remember I left that concert next day, bought all of her CDs online. Yeah,
that's very cool. I got to check that out. My next guy, I mentioned there's kind of 3 ways that people approach the banjo: the single string style Don Reno and Earl's rolls, and more the bluegrass music as we kind of know it. And then there's a gentleman by the name of Bill Keith.
Yeah,
I just knew that was going to be the next one you do. I just knew it was going to be Bill Keith.
This is one of my favorite albums. It's called Something Old, like spelt like Old Lang Syne, Something Newgrass, Something Borrowed, Something Bluegrass. Fantastic album. This man was a trendsetter, and he actually joined Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys. He was a member, and he wanted to play fiddle tunes note for note. Like when Earl would accompany a fiddle, he would play his rolls, and he really didn't play the melody of the song. Bill wanted to play the melody the way a fiddle player would play it. And the only way he could do it was to come up. He started working with these scales, melodic scales, and where you would never play the same note twice, a lot of open strings. You'd never play the same string twice in a row. It was really inventive. Him and another guy by the name of Bobby Thompson were working at it on this technique at exactly the same time, and they're kind of both the fathers. I don't know who you would say who was more influential. They're both amazing.
Yeah, Glenn, is that what they call chromatic playing?
Chromatic melodic style playing, and that's what Bill kind of came up with. And again, that's when you're talking about any banjo player today, they incorporate a lot of melodic playing with the Scruggs style.
Would that be the mid 70s when they were doing
this? Would be 60s when he came up with this style. But this album was from the 70s.
Okay,
and it's a fantastic album. And he does some great covers on this. He does the Rolling Stones' "No Expectations," which is fantastic. He does a Duke Ellington song, "Caravan." They do that.
Yep.
It's an instrumental. It's a great record. And Bill Keith, really influential, one of my favorite banjo players, and one of my favorite albums.
One of my favorite mustaches.
When I was in my freshman year in college, I was spent a couple of semesters at a place called Mars Hill up above Asheville, and a little private college. And I took a banjo class. I had built that banjo, and I had it with me, and I took just like a group class. And the guy that was instructing us was talking about the chromatics, playing chromatically and stuff. And it was just way over my head. I just remembered that he probably said, Bill Keith's doing this, he's been working on this and he does it. And of course, we were all in there going, okay, how do you make a G, and it was way over our head.
Yeah.
All right.
Hold on a second. I gotta, before you go, I just want to. Did you notice years ago the Glen Campbell Bluegrass albums were reissued and recycled so many times because he got huge? Yeah, well, I would assume they did. I think Glen Campbell sold a heck of a lot of records.
Hey, Rich.
Yeah, I know he did some generic albums that were actually Glen Campbell albums. So yeah,
I've been sneaking some bluegrassy type stuff over to Rich every once in a while, of like a version of a song I know he'd like, and Sam Bush doing "Girl from the North Country" with Jerry Douglas. I gave him that. He liked that. There was a couple of them.
Good.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Glenn, hope Kurt Vile gives you a bluegrass album one day. Yeah, no kidding. That'd be. Yeah, I don't know if Kurt could ever. I think he'd have to stop smoking weed before he could play fast enough to do that. Sorry, Elliott, go ahead.
No. You mentioned a name, and here he comes.
Kurt Vile?
No.
Oh, I love that album.
Bluegrass Revival album. This is Barron County, and 1979, I believe it was. And this is the pre-Bella Fleck version of Newgrass Revival. Sam Bush, Sam, and let's see, Courtney Johnson is down here.
Yeah, Courtney Johnson was the banjo
and Cowan is right here, and Birch, Curtis Birch, John Cowan. I couldn't remember Cowan's first name. John Cowan. All the jam band bluegrass bands, jam grass, whatever you want to call it. I think they own they need to give half their royalties to the new
guys. Those guys are the guys that made it cool. Like they were guys our age. They were all young, kind of long haired, really influenced by rock music, and brought that whole attitude into bluegrass. And
and these guys, and I love the artwork on that album.
Yeah, that's a great record.
And this is on Flying Fish. Newgrass Revival. Music was never the same after Newgrass Revival. I think.
No.
Of course, they were influenced by one of your favorite artists, John Hartford, and they were influenced by other artists as well. Of course, when they were playing just little holes in the wall and stuff in Kentucky and Ohio and in places like that. They were not making the club owners started billing them as a Grateful Dead cover band. they were like, we are not a Grateful Dead cover band. Maybe they did one or two, but they were jamming, doing long extended jams. They had long hair, that sort of stuff. And that they really had to squash that. They had to insist that the guys were just the guys that owned these clubs were just trying to fill the place up, and whatever it took. But Barron County is really good, kind of a jammy album by them. And I especially like Going to the Fair is on here. They do Lee Highway Blues. And shockingly, on some of this, there is a drum. There's a drum on some of this.
You got to burn it. Yeah.
Burn that sucker down.
My favorite song on that album is Dancing with the Angels.
First side one. Yeah, side one, first song.
In a band back in when I lived in Alberta. I played in a band. We used to do that song. I just freaking loved that track.
Whenever I listen to a Billy Strings album, first thing that pops into my head, somewhere within that album, there will be at least one or two songs that I say, this is like Newgrass Revival.
Yeah, I agree.
It's not every song he does, but when he gets into that jammy groove, man, it just sounds like, he's like the new Newgrass Revival. Yeah.
Amazing. I think whenever anybody who says they don't like bluegrass music, I play a Newgrass Revival song for them because There's some
Smart.
great stuff on there that really transcends the genre. Like it's just, amazing.
Yeah.
They do a version of "I'm Down," the Beatles song. That's incredible. And then Bela joined them, and after Courtney left, and my God, then they really went crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just dropping in for a second, Sam. Good to see you and Glenn together. Take care.
This is
Thanks, Frank of VA.
that he is somebody that's very close to me.
Oh, very cool.
It's my dad.
Oh, that's your dad?
Yeah.
Hi, Dad. Is he still listening to Rhapsody in Blue?
I don't know the last time he listened to it. I know he's listened to it a few times. The Bela
That's
Fleck.
awesome. Wow,
Yeah.
I'm honored.
How many we got watching now, Glenn?
We got 11. We had up to 19, and now yeah, we're at 11. It'll pop back
We need
up.
to get more Sam and Glenn in here. Then I better shut up.
Yeah, once Sam got on, that went down.
It's understandable.
When me and Elliott were on, we had 19 people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
pick it up,
people.
Sam. Pick it up.
They had you all in the background when they were eating supper.
Yeah.
Now people are,
Maybe
watching
mess
the
up your
Olympics.
hair or something. Do something.
Yeah, it's something. I'm gonna go. Well, okay, I'll jump into the newer stuff for a second, and I'll mention who I'm seeing Saturday as Old Crow Medicine Show. Again, one of these newer grass revivals, if you will, because they revived it in the early 2000s. Obviously not necessarily traditional bluegrass per se. Like their harmonies are obviously taken from bluegrass, but they're not necessarily a bluegrass band. Their first few albums didn't have a drum, and then they added a drum. They added electric guitar, and they do a lot of country rock as well, and that sort of stuff. But they started as a string band, and they were found by Doc Watson because they were busking in Nashville. And they originate from Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is about 2 hours up the road from where I live, around the spot where I went to college. And so like their hometown group essentially. And their big song was Wagon Wheel. It's been a hit 2 or 3 times over by different people. But the song I wanted to mention draws from an old Civil War era tune, which they do a version of "Carry Me Back to Virginia," which is just a full throttle fiddle tune, fast lyrics. It's so old time, and then they hit that chorus of "Won't you carry me back? Won't you carry me back to Virginia?" And then the end is that they say, "Won't you carry me back? I want to be buried in Virginia," because it tells a story about this soldier who dies in the war. And his last wish was to be buried back in Virginia, from where he was fighting, because that was his home. And that's always a big hit when they play it here, in Virginia. Obviously, the crowd goes nuts because it's a toe tapping tune as it is anyway. But they have some great traditional tunes. They cover traditional stuff like CC Rider. They do an old version of that. And even like their original stuff, a lot of the lyrics are drawn from historical places. They sing about the pioneers that came before them and music, and Ketch, the lead singer, and he's just a walking historian of music. He plays a fiddle that he was given. It was one of Roy Acuff's fiddles.
Oh, wow.
And like it was like his main fiddle, and that's the fiddle that Ketch plays with. I think it was from like the 1920s when Roy bought it. So it's a 100-year-old fiddle, and just to see them live and the energy they bring to string music, and they talk about it. They say we're just a bunch of guys from Virginia that love old time string music, and they have the fiddles, the stand up bass, the banjos, but then they incorporate rock. Their biggest influence is Bob Dylan, so they're bringing in. That they did a full album of Blonde on Blonde, which Glenn and I bonded over early when we first met, where they do the whole Blonde on Blonde album live from Tennessee. It's fantastic. And they take some of those songs, turn them on their heads, again, fast-paced banjo and fiddle tunes that you never would have thought that hearing those Dylan songs for the first time. But that song "Carry Me Back to Virginia," if you want to Tap Your Toe. I mean, it's like 2 minutes and 30 seconds or something. It's fast, but it's fantastic. And from there, just kind of branch out, go on Spotify, look up their top 10 biggest songs. And even if you've never heard of them, you see them live. I mean, they'll play stuff that you know. I mean, that they play. I've seen them play. Tom Petty tunes, John Prine tunes. I've seen them do, I think they did a Beastie Boys tune one time that I saw them. So like they just bring whatever influence they're feeling that night. I saw that they put up a video not too long ago. They were practicing Early Morning Rain by Gordon Lightfoot. So hopefully I get to hear them do that.
Wow, that'd be cool.
This weekend. I've heard them do Paradise with Jesse McReynolds from Jim and Jesse. Before he passed away, I got to see him play with them.
Oh, awesome.
So he opened for him the first time I saw him.
Really?
So, yeah, Old Tour Medicine Show. That's the way to do it.
They're a great band. They are good. That's another band you could recommend to people who are just kind of want an introduction to this type of music.
String music, yeah.
Another banjo player and an album that was really important to me is a guy by the name of Al Mundy. Banjo Sandwich. I just found this album. I've been looking for this album forever, and I found it in a used record store like about 4 months ago, and I just couldn't believe it. I paid $20 for it. I was just the happiest. It's when you find these albums, like no one played them. It's funny. Like you look at, they're like mint. Like when you get them, the cover looks like brand. Like I opened it myself. Anyway, Alan Munday, really interesting guy. A lot of history. He, as a young man, started a band with Sam Bush and another guy, Poor Richard's Almanac. They went nowhere. They made an album which never got released until later, and they eventually split up. Al Munday ended up, he was friends with Byron Berlin, who played with the Dillards and all kinds of people, and he eventually even joined the Flying Burrito Brothers for a while. Like he's
that
really
Country Cooking Flying Burrito Brothers combo, wasn't it?
Yeah. And and then he was in a band called Country Gazette, which was they were pretty big band back in the 70s.
That's what I meant to say, Country Gazette. Yeah.
Yeah. And Al Munday, he's great. And that's
Glenn, wasn't it because he was drafted? He went and met up with Sam and then traveled to Kentucky, and they recorded that album and played some together, and he was drafted and he had to go into the service.
Yeah. And then eventually someone found the tapes and released the album after Sam and Alan. They became more well-known. Somehow the album got released. So
wow.
I'd love to get my hands on that now too. I don't know if you can still find that.
I've got it in here somewhere.
Anyway, this is on the Ridge Runner label. So I want to show you that label because that's kind of synonymous with this type of music too. You don't see that label too much. Ridge Runner.
Oh yeah.
But great banjo instrumental album. I just want to catch up here because there's a couple of interesting guys here. Flamin' Groove listened, saw the Old and In the Way a couple of times in '74. Oh man, I wish I could turn the clock back and see that.
Wow.
If anybody who's watching doesn't know that, that's Jerry Garcia, David Grisman, Vassar Clements. Who was the singer?
Peter Rowan.
Peter Rowan, another legend. And just an incredible. That's a great album, Old and In the Way album. Another album you could play for anybody who wants an introduction to this music.
Oh, yeah. Red, White, and Bluegrass, pretty good band out of Atlanta, I believe, is where they were from.
And Bluegrass is fine, but I'm more of a green grass guy. Yeah, but Bluegrass is easier on your throat.
Yeah.
The green stuff is take the twigs and seeds out at least, John. What do you got for us, Elliott?
All right. Let's go back, getting into our more traditional. Ralph Stanley and the Clinch Mountain Boys. This is a gospel album, Cry from the Cross. And I'll hold it real close here. You got two young fellas, about 16 or 17 years old on each end. That's Keith Whitley.
Oh, wow.
and there is Ricky Skaggs.
Yeah, that's the haircut.
Yep.
Amazing, eh?
So this is on Rebel Records. As several I've shown are out of, believe it or not, Roanoke, Virginia.
Oh yeah.
Rebel Records. Interesting. Now Ralph, or Carter had passed away, and Ralph, after a time of reflection, reassembled the band as Ralph Stanley and the Clinch Mountain Boys, and a lot of their music included gospel, and this is a all gospel album, and it's got now Larry Sparks was the vocalist for a while with Ralph, and he was really good, and Larry Sparks has had a great career since then, but he brought in a new guy. I believe he was from Ohio, and his name was Roy Lee Centers. And Roy Lee Centers is guitar, rhythm guitar, and vocals, about as close to Carter's vocals as you could get. Just a great artist, performer. Unfortunately, he died very young in some sort of a violent encounter. But he's on this album doing most of the lead vocals. Now, Dick Freeland was the owner of Rebel Records, and I think they were I think they had a studio in Maryland, which was in somebody's the engineer's basement of his home in Maryland. Okay. They would go in there in that basement and they would record an album, and then they'd all pile up in a car, and they'd go riding around until they found something good, a hillside or an old building or something. And they would all pile out of the car and go line up. And they'd get the camera and they'd take the picture. And there's your cover art. Of course, since this was a gospel album, they just rode around until they came up on this old cross here in this field. And that's exactly what it did. So no big budget, art department or putting this together or anything.
Yeah.
Cut the album in a couple of days. Go find you a good picture. Get everybody while they're all still together. Get them together. Take a picture of them in their suits, and put that album out. And this was really good. They do a lot of the Carter and Ralph Stanley pen tunes like "You're Drifting On" and "Will You Wait a Little Longer," "Bright Morning Star." They do "Death Is Only a Dream," which is a traditional song that they first recorded on Rich and Tone Records, which was a very small label. Back in 1947, they recorded it, and they put it out. The Rich Tone label. If you can find a record with the Stanley Brothers on Rich Tone, you're looking at some big money for that, because there weren't many, and they were just sold at dime stores and stuff. They would go into a quick studio, do a little studio date, press up some 45 or 78s originally, and put them out at the dime stores in the Appalachian region, basically.
Yeah.
But beautiful gospel. They do a couple of acapella tunes on this, but very early, Keith Whitley and Ricky Skaggs on here.
I'll tell you, I mean, bluegrass music, a big part of bluegrass music is the gospel portion of it, and it's always so beautiful. It's amazing. I love the bluegrass gospel songs. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah. I'm gonna again not piggyback.
Hold on 1 second. I just want to show this thing here. Same dude who saw Old and in the Way saw Peter. This is just recently. Peter Rowan at Music Care's Ramblin' Jack Elliott show.
Wow.
In January. Wow, very cool. Ended with Bob Weir and Joan Baez.
Wow. Oh man, he's seeing some good stuff right now.
Peter
Rowan is such an interesting, versatile artist, really.
Yeah. Sorry, Sam.
No, I was gonna say, I'm just to again segue it from what Elliott was talking about with the Stanley Brothers. Again, that stuff just runs deep, around here with the Stanley Brothers history, where they're from. But again, to bring in kind of a newer side of, a bluegrass. Not even these. I wouldn't even really say this is a bluegrass band as much as it is. They're one of the few that still stick to like a traditional 3-piece stand-up bass, banjo, guitar setup, and that's really it. It's they have a lady on stand-up bass and then 2 guys, but they come from like the punk, and like heavy metal tradition. They're a little group called the Devil Makes Three.
Okay.
And if you've never heard of the Devil Makes Three, y'all would both love them. That first album, it's self-titled, fantastic. But they did an album. They're on New West Records now, who have a lot of
Alison
Justin
Brown's
Timberlake,
label.
Steve Earle, all those guys are on there. But they put out an album like in 2018 or so called Redemption and Ruin, and the first half of it, the Ruin side of the record, is essentially about it's all covers. The whole album's covers. Ruin is a bunch of old beer drinking, hell raising kind of tunes. That they do like I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I mean, just songs about drinking and all that stuff. And the second side is the redemption side, which is the gospel side. And so they do "Come On Up to the House" by Tom Waits. They do, stuff like that. But one of the songs that they do, and the song that I wanted to point out was the Stanley Brothers song, "I Am the Man, Thomas," which is about doubting Thomas and the Bible. And the way that they do it is just fantastic. There's some like flailing banjo on it. The whole song is, "I am the man, Thomas, I am the man. Look at these nail scars I buried in my hands." And then it's one of those call and response songs, they nailed me to the cross, Thomas. I am the man. On the cross I died, Thomas. I am the man. And my band, my church band has done that. It's the one song that I've ever played banjo on in front of people because it requires that like flailing kind of style, which as a guitar player, I'm like, yeah, I can fake it a bit. I know I sent it to you, Glenn, a couple of years ago when I did it, but it's just such a great tune. Again, they do it at a much, more energetic pace than the Carter family. I mean, the Stanley Brothers, they have a great version, but there's something about that Devil Makes Three version on that album, Redemption and Ruin. They also do, they do the song, they do a Hank Williams song, this is it called the Shadow of Death or the Valley of Death. It's just a fantastic record, Redemption and Ruin, if you've never heard it. And the Devil Makes Three, their original stuff is fantastic. But I wanted to point them out because they are, again, merging that old and the new, which is still happening with bluegrass. I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to talk about Billy Strings. He's doing that too. Everybody that, is in that new world. Mighty Poplar was mentioned earlier, a super group, a one-off group. They merging the old and the new. They're doing stuff by Leonard Cohen. They're doing stuff by John Hartford, but they're also sticking to A.P. Carter tunes and traditional folk tunes. So it's just like, telling a story, in like the oral, tradition of, passing a story down from person to person. Or folk music. I mean, Bob Dylan was the king of taking a line from this song or a line from that book, mixing it up, putting it into a new thing. So you've got the new, but you're also thinking like, oh, I've heard that line somewhere else. And that's what a lot of bluegrass is. Again, it was the perfect merging from the folky scene. I mean, that's an easy transition to make for those people, in the Greenwich Village area in the early 60s. But anyway, Devil Makes Three, their version of I Am the Man, Thomas. It is fantastic.
I gotta check that out. I'm not really that familiar with those guys. I've heard the name and never really delved into it.
You would love that record, Redemption and Ruin. It's fantastic.
Here's
Steve.
Stevie's dropping by to say hello. Thanks, buddy. Heading back to Olympic covers what scantily clad women play beach volleyball.
Oh,
Rather than watch us, I can't believe it.
Listen to us and turn the volume down on the TV.
Turn the sound down. You get the best of both worlds.
That's right.
Hey, folks, I got an album by Devil Makes Three.
Hey, Headley.
Do Right
Wrong is fantastic.
Yeah.
That is the best vinyl community channel today, right there. That fellow right there, Headley.
There we go. Awesome. Everybody check out another fat bearded man talking about records. That Devil Makes Three album sounds really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to check it out too, Richard. Let me know what you think. Okay, I'm going to the next banjo player. Another guy. This guy was maybe the first guy who really took the banjo into another universe. Like got out of the, stayed true to the roots, but just took it into jazz and weird stuff. Is Tony Trischka. This was an album again that I just freaking played until it's called Banjo Land, and the first side is all kind of traditional, more traditional type stuff, but played adventurously. And the second side is all Tony's weird stuff. And here's the people who play on the first side of this record besides Tony: Bill Keith, David Grisman, Buck White, Jerry Douglas, Vassar Clements, Tony Rice, Todd Phillips, Bela Fleck, all play on this album.
That's a who's who right there.
Yeah, it's an amazing record. Came out mid 70s, I would say. Rounder 0087. Now, Tony just released a new album, which is really good. I don't know if you guys have heard this yet. Earl's Jam.
Nah.
So somebody gave Tony a USB stick with all these jam sessions on it at Earl Scruggs' house. And it was Earl and John Hartford and whoever else was there. And Earl made it be known, there's hours and hours and days and months of these recordings. And Earl made it be known that he did not want these released in at any time. So Tony, being respectful to Earl, he transcribed all the stuff Earl was playing on these songs and recorded his own versions of the songs.
Wow.
They do like San Antonio Rose and Roll On Buddy, Freight Train Blues, Casey Jones, Dooley, Cripple Creek, Amazing Grace. They even do a version of Lady Madonna. Can you imagine Earl Scruggs played Lady Madonna? Isn't that cool? Bury Me Beneath the Willow, Little Liza Jane. Fantastic record, and all guest artists on here. I know you're a fan of Sierra Farrell. She's Elliott. She's on here, sings a couple of songs. Sam Bush is on here. Billy Strings is on here. Fantastic album. So it's called Earl's Jam Volume 1. From what I understand, he recorded like 26 of these songs, and there's a Volume 2 coming out in the next year. But highly recommend this album that just was released like a month ago. Fantastic record.
Wow.
Cool. Tony Trischka. All right. I'll go with this one next because I got a great story I want to tell about this one. This is the album Lester and Mac, Lester Flatt and Mac Wiseman.
Oh, nice. I've never seen that album.
And it's, I think, maybe 71 or 72, not long after he and Earl split up. But my emphasis is on Mac Wiseman here. Mac Wiseman probably had the most varied and interesting career of any musician I can think of. I believe it was Molly O'Day he was bass player for in the early 40s. And when she had some hits, and he sang in for the Bluegrass Boys, for Bill and Rose Bluegrass Boys. He was singer for them for a while. He was a crooner in the 1950s, kind of a country pop crooner sometimes. And he was, I think his big hit as a pop singer was Love Letters in the Sand, I believe. That's one of those songs that was a hit that 2 or 3 different people recorded around the same time, and it was hit for several of them. He co-founded with a few other people, the Country Music Foundation and Hall of Fame. He was the leader in getting that. One of his last albums, he was in his 90s, and he did an album with John Prine.
Yeah.
And when he passed away, he was writing original material to be recorded for an album. He was like 95 or 96, something like that. And I don't know if he ever got a chance to record those new songs or not. But that's what he lived his whole darn life. And Sam, he's a Virginian, I believe. born in Virginia. He was a victim of polio as a little boy, as so many people were, and was bedridden most of his childhood. So he listened to the radio, he read, he learned to play musical instruments. And so that sparked his creativity. But Mac, as you can see in 71, he was a big man. He lost a lot of this weight later in life. I don't think he would have lived into his 90s if he hadn't. But he was head of Dot Records.
Really?
Retirement in Nashville, head of Dot Records. So just an amazing career. But when we started this show, we started talking a little bit about the bluegrass, the rise of the Bluegrass Festivals. Well, Mac was based out of Nashville, and these Bluegrass Festivals could be fairly lucrative, for an artist like that. I mean, compared to what you make, in a lot of other venues you would do. Mac he had a Cadillac, and he would get in his Cadillac, and they would get booked into different Bluegrass festivals. So each weekend he would drive to, for instance, Anger, Bluegrass Festival it was 5 miles from my house. Great memories of going to that Bluegrass Festival in the early to mid 70s. And, but he would do this wherever. He would drive in just his Martin guitar and no band. And he would get there on Friday evening, and he would be scheduled to play on Saturday. He would get there on Friday evening. He would walk around the campground, where everybody was picking in little groups, and he would identify the quality, good, strong players. He would say, "Can I sit in with y'all for a while?" And they'd go, "Oh my God, that's Mac Wiseman." "Yes, sir." And he would get in there and play with them a little bit, and he'd wander on to another camp, play with them, and then he would figure out who were the best musicians of the bunch. And he would go around and he said, "Hey, I'm gonna do a set at 3 tomorrow afternoon at 3, and another one at 8. You think you'd be interested in playing with me?" And he would go around and he'd get a whole band together out of these guys from the parking lot, and they were so honored to play with them. It was just, he would go up on stage, and they were doing, Jimmy Brown the Newsboy and things like that, Little Cabin Home on the Hill and things like that. So they all knew the repertoire, and he would get out there, and that was his band, and he would play. They wouldn't make a cent, but they could go back and tell their family and friends, "Man, I played on stage with Mac Wiseman." Mac would collect his money, stick it in his pocket, get back in his Cadillac, and drive back to Nashville. He never had a
cool story. He's a legend. I mean, Mac Wiseman's a legend. Yeah. That's like, when you talk about that, that's the one thing that really also attracted me to this music is like when you're a fan of rock music and you talk about, Jimi Hendrix or the Stones or Zeppelin or any of these guys, they're untouchable. You would never get a chance to ever get within a million miles of any of them to know what they are like as people. But the people in the bluegrass world are the most down to earth, approachable human beings. Like, I can't believe how many of these great artists I've had a chance to meet and sit and talk with. And I think that's like just amazing.
Yeah.
Like what Mac Wiseman was doing that. Can you imagine Eric Clapton doing that or somebody doing that at a festival or a rock festival? No. Not a chance.
No.
Yeah. They'd be back at their hotel.
Whisked away on the helicopter,
exactly. And it's just amazing how you can approach,
I got to see
any of these guys.
Doyle Lawson, from Quicksilver. He did a session for some high school students, and I was invited to go. I was out of high school. I was in my mid-20s, but I was able to get there, and it was him with his band, like at that time, maybe about 8, 9, 10 years ago. And just at the end of it, everybody had left, and I got to walk up to Doyle Lawson and shake his hand and just, thank him for everything, and that's just, again, nobody else is going to, the same place. I mean, they were trying to get David Crosby to come and talk, and he flaked out the day of, and because he
Yeah.
had, he's like a lot of those guys with egos, but the bluegrass guys, yeah, they'll be like, yeah, I'll go out
Oh,
and get lunch with you, whatever it
I
is.
love that.
Yeah,
Absolutely amazing.
yeah,
It's the only time I've gotten to meet my heroes is in the bluegrass world.
yeah, and they usually don't let you down.
No, never.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I misspoke a while ago. You mentioned Key West Records, and I said that was Alison Brown's
No,
label. Her
New
label
West.
is
New
Compass.
West.
Is Compass, New West. Yeah, so I screwed
Yeah.
up there. Anyway, the next guy I want to talk about is one of my favorite banjo players of all time, who's still making great music. He's not that old. I mean, he's probably in his 50s or something, I'm assuming. Is the Kruger brothers.
I've heard of
Jens
them.
and Yui Kruger. These guys are amazing. They're from Switzerland and European background, and became fans of string music and acoustic music. And there's the best of the Kruger brothers. Amazing band. And Jens Kruger, I don't know how he does it, but he makes a banjo sound so beautiful. His melodies are all pretty, and I mean, he can play bluegrass with the best of them, but he puts out these records that are just so gorgeous. If you ever want to listen to a song called "High Up in the Sky," it's absolutely just one of the most beautiful melodies I've ever heard in my life. And he makes a banjo sound as gorgeous as any other instrument you could think of. And his album, "The Bridge," if you can ever find it again, I think it's just on CD, but just an incredible player. And the Kruger brothers have put out some great stuff. And again, and somebody he's a real educator. He's got lots of videos where he teaches these master classes and everything, just full of information, and it's super dude. And I've got to see them a few times, and just incredible people, incredible players.
I believe when they moved to the United States, I believe they moved to Western North Carolina, around maybe Jefferson or somewhere like that. They were wanting to get close to Doc Watson, I believe, in some of that music. I don't know if they're still there, but
oh man, if you ever get a chance to, I mean, when they come around, go see them. Amazing players.
I believe we skipped Sam last time. We went from me to...
Yeah, Glenn just wanted to talk a little bit.
Oh, did I just skip? I thought you just...
No, I did the thing on Mac Wiseman.
And then I jumped right in.
You did.
You invited me on this channel.
Well, thanks for coming out, Sam.
Yeah, I know.
Sam,
Yeah,
gotta
good.
go.
I'll let the rest of it be yours, Glenn.
Well, Sam, you can go twice.
Well, I appreciate it. I think that just means I get paid twice too, right? We're getting paid.
Yeah, you'll get more money.
Okay. I want to talk about, again, kind of back to more, it's modern, but it's more like the traditional style. It's not like, Devil Makes Three or anything like that. I want to talk about a duo, one of whom played with Doyle Lawson for many years, and the other is the brother to a famous musician in the bluegrass world. And together they are called Daly and Vincent, and just two great tenor vocalists. Again, they play in kind of the quartet style mostly. Big influence from the Statler brothers, again, a Virginia group. And you were talking about Elliott, the Stanley brothers with their album covers. That was essentially the Statler brothers. They would go and find, because they were from Stanton, Virginia, and they would go to a house downtown that looked neat, like a big mansion, and they would knock on the door and say, "Hey, can we pay you $50 to take a picture on your porch?" Or they would go to the library at the local college, or whatever it was. But Daly and Vincent, I first heard of. They had an album out. I think it was through when Cracker Barrel, the restaurant, had a record label. I think it's kind of merged with the Gaither Gospel label, but they had an album where they sang all Statler Brothers tunes. But you had this, great bluegrass tight harmonies. And again, you have, Jamie Daly and Darren Vincent, whose sister is Rhonda Vincent, mandolin player, and Darren plays mandolin, but mostly he's a bass player. But they just sing so well. I got to see them for the first time with my grandparents. That was my Christmas gift to them this past Christmas, was tickets to see Daly and Vincent. They have a TV show on the RFD network, and they have great original music. They do great covers of tunes. Again, the guys that they get in the band are top notch. I mean, fast picking mandolin, guitar. They do have drums, so let's take it easy here. But I know, yeah. But I mean, again, just tight harmonies with the four guys they have on stage, and again, they're set up like the Statler brothers on stage with bass, tenor, lead, alto. Just again, if you want super tight harmonies, check them out. Their big song was actually written by Gillian Welsh, and it's a song called "By the Mark," which she recorded as well, maybe a year or so after they did. Her and David Rawlings, her husband. But listen to the song "By the Mark." Just this incredibly high tenor from Jamie Daly. Again, it's a gospel tune, but just at a song level, even if you're not into gospel music, it's just a beautiful tune. And when they play it live, it's just the two of them on stage with a mandolin and then the guitar, and it's just a fantastic tune. "By the Mark" by Daly and Vincent. They tour all the time, and they're usually $25-$30 tickets. But it's a fantastic show. It's great singing all throughout. They're funny. They tell great stories. They're entertainers. I mean, they're from that old Grand Ole Opry tradition, even though they're in their early 50s maybe. But they're from that old Grand Ole Opry tradition. They're members of the Grand Ole Opry, and just a fantastic duo. I love Daly and Vincent. They're just really again down to earth guys.
That's very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, it's my turn. I'm just kidding. Elliott, go ahead.
Okay. Now, Sam and I brag about our North Carolina and Virginia artists a whole lot, but I have to admit some of the best bluegrass you're ever going to listen to comes from that Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, part of which is Virginia, Maryland, Virginia, D.C. area. Just some fantastic bluegrass. There's such a tradition for that music, and I think it's probably because people from Virginia, North Carolina, West Virginia, Kentucky that went World War II era, post World War II, in search of a better future, job wise, career wise. A lot of them, the jobs were available in that DC metro area as the government grew and business grew in that area. So there are a lot of such a wide variety of people that there was enough people there that could support some of that music to cause it to start growing, and then the other folks, and then the folks that weren't necessarily from Western Virginia or North Carolina or something like that also grew to love it. And at American University in DC, there was always for years and years and years a traditional music drive time radio program at American University. So you're getting off of work, put the radio on, and you're listening to the Stanley Brothers or just any number of artists. So that all that long-winded introduction to say from Maryland, this was a great bluegrass band for many years. The Johnson Mountain Boys, and this is on Rounder. This is the first album I ever got by them, and this was probably about 1980 or so. And a traditional, that's not a good one, a traditional bluegrass band. I don't know, all these guys are living in, if not born and living in, Maryland, and they just did a fantastic job. They had a run of albums and tours. Dudley Connell, I think, is the biggest name from the Johnson Mountain Boys, which I believe he's a Latter-day Seldom Seen member. but he's been in some since then, been in some other top-notch bands. Eddie Stubbs was the fiddle player and bass vocalist on here, and he got tired of touring, got tired of being on the road, and he became the WSM, is that right? The Nashville radio station for the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah.
The WSM MC for the Grand Ole Opry.
Oh, wow.
So he went to work for the radio station and got off the road. But
that's a good gig too.
Traditional bluegrass, the Johnson Mountain Boys.
Awesome. That's a band I never really explored that much. You've got my interest.
If you see their records, you should be able to get them at a decent price, a cheap price probably. They are well worth your time to check out. They're just beautiful, beautiful vocals, and the instrumentation. They are top level.
Wow, that's awesome.
Instrumentalists.
Great pick. Dave Rollins did a great video with Michael Fremer. If you haven't seen it, I think you would enjoy it.
Okay.
Edward's here. Prog Hat. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Prog Hat.
Sam, go again.
I will mention, again, somebody that has been mentioned a few times, but I would be remiss not to talk about him in particular. Specifically this album, just because it's just so good. I'm talking about Tony Rice. I know we've talked about him in different groups and everything, but J.D. Crowe and Elliott showed the Bluegrass album. But for me, growing up, that was, again, one of my early memories of, again, this type of music. Was my dad was a big Tony Rice fan. My mom too, but I remember my dad playing his music a lot over the summer. I remember the song that he did called John Wilkes Booth. Great album, Church Street Blues. Mm-hmm. That's a fantastic reissue by Kraft. Came out earlier this year. It sounds so clean. But my dad played Tony Rice all the time. He played the Rice Brothers record a lot. Tony Rice doing the version of Walk On Boy, the Doc Watson tune. But the album that I'm going to specifically mention it's a duo album. It's the Skaggs and Rice record, which is just Ricky Skaggs and Tony Rice on mandolin and guitar. Nothing else. He did similar albums with Norman Blake as well. Just again, Blake and Rice too. And I know Norman is still out there doing his thing. But that Skaggs and Rice album, there's a song that they do, an old song called "Where the Soul of Man Never Dies." Oh, and you're talking about some great 2-part harmony, man. It is just, Ricky Skaggs has one of those most pure voices in any genre of music. And, at that point, they had already played in J.D. Crowe together and, on various other projects. But to hear just the two of those, again, masters of their craft, Ricky just, making the mandolin look so easy, and Tony doing that flat picking on his Martin is just, it's something else to behold. I mean, there's some great stuff on that album. But, check out the song "Where the Soul of Man Never Dies." Again, there's tons of versions of it. I know Sarah Jarosz and Chris Thiele do a version of it that's pretty good. If you want to look at a newer artist, but that Skaggs and Rice song, once you hear that, the rest of the album is just as good. Again, just two guys, two instruments, and you forget that it's just two instruments. I mean, it's not like when you hear some of those old records, like an old folk record where it's just a guitar. You're like, you might get bored of it after a while, but with them, doing like the, again, counterpoint with one another with the mandolin and the guitar, Tony Rice with his, beautiful baritone voice. Again, Virginia, he's from Danville, Virginia. And unfortunately I never got to see him live. My dad did several times. So did my mom, but, just that record's fantastic. Again, Church Street Blues is fantastic, but I wanted to specifically focus on "Where the Soul of Man Never Dies" because it is just a beautiful song. So that's my 2 cents on that.
That's awesome. Rice and Skaggs, great album. That's another one I'm always on the lookout for.
Yeah, I have it on CD, but not on vinyl.
Yeah,
I've looked into finding a copy. I had a copy and lost it in a mold issue in my basement years ago,
Uh,
and then paid pretty good money for a copy off Discogs a few years ago because I couldn't live without the album. I had to have that album in my
Yeah.
collection. And
that's
then
good.
lucked up at a record show earlier this year or late last year at a record show in Raleigh. Guy was selling everything half price, and found it. He wanted $20 for it. Got it for 10 because it was half.
Wow.
Wow, that's
And
amazing.
That's a 30.
Would have
30,
given them the 20.
That's a $30 to $40 record
Exactly.
retail.
Yeah.
Easy.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, I'm actually going to get current here. I saw this band. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law live in Prince Edward Island. And we went down maybe, I don't know, this is probably just before COVID. We went down and visited, and there was a Bluegrass Festival going on. My brother-in-law and I went, and we saw a band that was there from Boston. And they're called Mile 12. I don't know if you've heard these guys. They've got 4 albums out now. These are this one's called City on the Hill. This one's called Onward. Great band. Produced by Brian Sutton, who's a great flat picking guitar player. And the banjo player in this band is her name is Catherine Boness. She's or BB Boness, they call her, and she's just an incredible player. There's the band there, but well worth checking out. These guys are really good and have a modern sound and still stay true to the traditional styles as well. But great players. They do a bluegrass version of the Allman Brothers' "Ramblin' Man." Watch it on YouTube. It's freaking awesome, like unbelievable. The leads they play in it, that they make Dickie Betts solos come to life in a bluegrass thing. It's really, really good. But
say the name of the band again.
Mile 12.
Mile 12.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. You can watch lots of their stuff on YouTube. Great band. They're really making a name for themselves these days.
Okay.
Interesting. Never heard of them.
All right, I'm on.
You're on.
Okay. Just before I show this next one, to kind of piggyback on something Sam was talking about, there have been 4 reissues of Tony Rice records, solo records, in the last year or 2. So all of them are really good. Now, of course, that Kraft Church Street Blues is just super great sounding, but all of them sound good. I picked them all up. And Tony Rice records are $30 to $100 records.
Exactly.
Now that they've got these represses, I'd advise people to pick those up before whatever the run was. If it was 3,000 or 4,000 or 1,000 or whatever, pick those things up for retail for $25, $30 because their value will go up.
He has one coming up on was it Barnes and Noble is reissuing one?
Is that right? Do you remember which one it is?
Is it John Wilkes Booth?
John Wilkes Booth is on Church Street, isn't it?
No.
Yeah, John Wilkes Booth. I'm pretty sure it's on Church Street.
Let me see. Yeah, keep talking. I'll look.
But the Tony Rice guitar album is one that's been reissued, and it's got the best picture. Now this goes to what you were saying, Glenn, about access to artists. It's got a picture that I think it's not the original cover, so it's a different cover on the guitar album, and it's got a picture on the back cover of Tony playing, at an outdoor festival setting. And if you look closely in the bottom left side of that photograph, and it's at night, the bottom left side of that photograph is a little boy, about an eight-year-old boy or something. And he's looking up at Tony Rice playing the guitar. And you can see he's totally enthralled with this. And that says it, that, such a great photograph to capture that wonderment in that child's eyes as he sees one of the greatest guitarists he'll ever live in his lifetime right there. And you wonder if it inspired that child to become a musician or or just have a great love for music or whatever. But I love that photograph. I love photographs that kind of touch you and make you wonder what the story is,
That's pretty cool.
take the story forward. Anyway,
did you ever get a chance to see Tony Rice play?
I saw the Bluegrass band play in Greensboro.
Oh my Lord, really?
I guess it was probably after the first album came out. It might have been the second.
Oh.
It was in the early 80s anyway.
That's like
the album that I was thinking about was Native American, that has John Wilkes Booth.
You're right.
That's the one that's just
the most
released,
recently,
right?
the most recently done one. You're
Say
right.
that again. Yeah, it's coming out soon, or if it's not already out.
It's out now.
It's out now.
I've got a review of that one.
He did. I watched Elliott's review.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, it's on my watch later.
Yeah, you're right. I was confusing them because both those are the two that have most recently come out: Church Street Blues and Native American.
Oh man, that's amazing! You get to see that band. Oh,
and I think I'm trying to think if I saw them any other time. When I was young and at these Bluegrass Festivals that we had nearby, there were so many great bands that we saw, but I was literally 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old during that time we had those festivals. I didn't realize I was listening to the greats. Bill. I know. I saw Bill Monroe multiple times, the Bluegrass Boys. I saw the Earl Scruggs Review a few times. I saw Lester Flatt a bunch, but I don't know who all I saw. I may have seen Tony Rice in some configuration, and it never dawned on me, who I was seeing, what I was seeing.
I've never seen Tony Rice. I've never seen David Grisman. They're probably the two big giants of our age, kind of our era, that I never got.
I've seen Norman Blake.
I've never seen Norman Blake either.
I've seen Norman and Nancy at a little street show set up at a park in Raleigh, downtown Raleigh.
Oh my Lord.
We've gone long enough where I can't not show an album by this guy, Glenn. I was kind of waiting, thinking you were going to show it.
I've been trying to stay away from the ones I talk about all the time. But
okay, well, this to me, I know everybody speaks of Aeroplane as being the great album that changed the world. But to me, Mark Twain is my favorite John Hartford album.
Yeah, what a great record.
And this is a great record. He's on Flying Fish on here, and it's just him. And this is what you would see if you went to see him in concert.
Yeah,
I was fortunate enough to see John Hartford several times in concert. He would take a piece of plywood. He would mic the bottom of the piece of plywood, and he would stand on that piece of plywood while he played, and he would do the percussion by tapping out the percussion with his toes and heels while he played fiddle, banjo, guitar, whatever instrument. Usually it was either the banjo or the fiddle. But this album, it's a quirky album. It's got The Lowest Pair, which is a parody of the Lord's Prayer. It's got Trying to Do Something to Get Your Attention, which is kind of it could have been done on Hee Haw, and it's got the quirky Austin Minor Symphony, which is kind of a ode to classical music. Little Cabin Home on the Hill, Walla Walla, but my favorite song on here is the Julie Bell Swain. He was besides being a musician, he had a great love for the ships that traveled the Mississippi and the tributary.
The riverboats.
Riverboats. He was a riverboat. He had his riverboat pilot's license. Yeah, and it's a song about being on the Julie Bell Swain, the riverboat. That's just great. I could listen to this. I've listened to this. This came out in what, 76?
Yeah,
my junior, senior, and senior year in high school, somewhere in there. So you know how that stuff when you were in high school, some of it never leaves you, and it helps form your musical taste. this definitely did. And
yeah.
I've listened to this in one form or another. I've got a CD that I play in my car when I'm driving sometimes. Never gets old.
Oh, classic album. That's a great record. Yeah, John was the best. I just finished a book. Somebody turned me on to it. There's a book written about John by the name Bob Carlin. Do you know that guy? He plays
Yeah,
played
he's
banjo guitar.
a string band
He
artist.
played with John in the string band thing later in John's life, and he wrote a book all about John. It's really, really good.
I've read a book that he wrote about string bands in North Carolina.
Oh,
And
wow.
He goes back and traces the string band music in different parts of
Interesting.
Piedmont, North Carolina, mainly.
I love that musical history of that whole thing. Oh,
I'll have to check that out then.
yeah, it's really good. Look at that. Jason's with us. Jason, buddy. I didn't know he was still around.
Yeah, he's still with us.
Picked up the new Morning Bugle reissue because of Glenn. Pretty good. You're darn right. It's damn good. Yeah, the reissue's really good. It's expensive, but worth every penny.
I'm waiting for the price to drop on that when I'll pick it up.
You think it's going to drop?
I hope so.
I'm thinking it's going to get more expensive. That's what I'm thinking.
Maybe they'll do a second.
Was that RSD? Was that RSD?
Yeah, and there was only 1,500 worldwide.
I've got a copy of the original, but it's not.
I got my original and the thing too. Yeah,
it's not in good shape, so I need something that plays cleaner.
Yeah. Sam.
Yeah, this will probably have to be one of my last ones. Unfortunately, I think I might have to get, but I wanted to
you're running out of artists or you're running out of time?
Well, both, but yeah, I've got to. But I wanted to talk about. You mentioned them at the very beginning, but I wanted to finish it off. You talked about Mighty Poplar, and that was a group that they were again a one-off as of now. Although I think they're kind of just doing the festival gigs right now. The lead singer is Andrew Marlin from Mandolin Orange / Watch House. And then you have 3 of the Punch Brothers on there, and then Alex Hargreaves, who plays fiddle for Billy Strings. And I saw Alex play with Billy, but I saw him over 10 years ago play with Sarah Jarose. He was playing with her at a small venue, and I've seen Watch House a few different times. But that record, again, all covers. They do a John Hartford tune. A couple of the other guys, Noam Pikelny, Chris Eldridge, they do some songs, like a lead or two.
But it's mostly son of Ben Eldridge, who played in The Seldom Scene, another great Washington, D.C. area band.
Ask you that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they do a Hartford tune. They do a Leonard Cohen tune. They do a Bob Dylan tune. But the song that I wanted to talk about was the song "A Distant Land to Roam," which is the first song on the record. It's a Carter family tune. It's fantastic. I'd love to have it on vinyl. I've only got it on CD.
Oh, it's a great album.
That song, they do a song called "Up on the Divide," which is a fantastic tune. But "A Distant Land to Roam" is it's so good. But again, if you're worried about bluegrass having that twang, I've had several people say I want to get into bluegrass, but I can't do the twang. Which Elliott and I, we can't help it, but we're born with it. But they're I mean, these guys, they're from the Northwest and from California. Maybe some of them are from New York. I don't know where all of them come from, but it's those bluegrass tunes. And again, songwriter tunes, by, Cohen and Hartford and Bob Dylan that they're doing. And they're all fantastic. Andrew Marlin plays the mandolin. Again, they have the fiddle, banjo, guitar, bass, no drums. And it's just a really, really solid record. Again, an easy one to get into if you don't want to hear, if you don't want to hear Flat and Scruggs type bluegrass, start here. it's a great starter record, and you're like, oh, I recognize these names that wrote these songs, and so maybe you won't be as afraid to, dig into it. And then you do come across a Carter Family tune, and you're thinking, oh, let me go and listen to Carter Family stuff. Again, following that tradition of the folk and bluegrass scene, but yeah, I had to bring up Mighty Poplar. I know I mentioned it to Glenn when it came out. I know you're a big fan of it now, Glenn. I would love to see him in some iteration. I don't think Alex plays with him much because he's with Billy Strings all the time. But they I can't remember. They get somebody else that's that has some chops on him as well. But yeah, Mighty Poplar. Check out that record, self-titled. You won't be disappointed with it. It's great.
It is a great record. I absolutely agree. I'm going to go with a great female banjo player by the name of Alison Brown. This woman is incredible. This album was just released on vinyl for the first time just a couple of months ago, and it sounds great. I mean, Alison was a financial investor. She worked in the banking business while she played, banjo just as a hobby. Became a good enough musician. She ended up meeting a lot of the players in California and then ended up in Alison Krauss's band. She played in Union Station for a while, went out on her own. Her husband, I'm trying to remember his name. I can't find it. Anyway, Gary West, who's a bass player. She was obviously good with money and everything. They started a record label, Compass Records, and it's become quite a really, they're doing really well with the record label. This album's fantastic. Fair Weather, it's called. She's got a lot of albums up from where she does Alison Brown Quartet, where she does a lot of jazz. This is more bluegrassy. There's a great song on here where she does a song with Bela Fleck called Leaving Cottondale, which actually won a Grammy for Best Bluegrass Instrumental when this album came out. But they do some great covers on this. They do a great version of Elvis Costello's Every Day I Write the Book, Sam Bush singing the vocal, and an incredible version of Everybody's Talkin', the Fred Neil song that Nielsen had the hit with on thing. But she's incredible, and this is a great record, and I would definitely grab this vinyl while you can. It's really good. Her first album's called Simple Pleasures, and they're just reissuing that on vinyl as well. But fantastic player. If she ever comes to your area, you should go check her out. She's amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah, I didn't know her.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Part of the West Coast bluegrass scene, right?
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Well, I talked about the importance of the metropolitan DC area for bluegrass. I guess the preeminent band would be the Country Gentlemen, and the band that sprang from the Country Gentlemen. My favorite bluegrass band of all time is the Seldom Seen. This particular album is their second one, Act 2. I could have picked any of their albums. I like any iteration of the Seldom Seen because they have, membership has changed, and yep, there's the first album right there. The original lineup, and I'm wearing this shirt in honor of John Duffy. The original lineup, the mandolin player and tenor vocals, John Duffy. He used to wear these bowling shirts all the time.
Yeah.
Trauma surgeon, guitar player, singer, songwriter, John Starley. Just a great, this guy literally, he's passed away now, but he literally juggled somehow a career as a musician, a professional musician, and a career as a surgeon.
Yeah.
His whole adult life. He was in the Army. I don't know if he was in Vietnam doing surgeries or not, but he was, he was in the Army for a long time, and then he was at in DC, the hospital of Womack's here nearby. But anyway, he was, and then he, became a civilian and continued as a I think he was mainly a trauma surgeon, and maintained a career as in this band. Ben Aldridge, as you were just talking about his son.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Aldridge, or Ben was Eldridge, I guess, and then Aldridge is the dobro player, and Tom Gray is the bass player in the original lineup. This band, maybe one of the most important bands in bringing people to accept. They played very traditionally, but bringing people to accept the use of material that was not the traditional bluegrass material. They covered, James Taylor. Sweet Baby James is one they did. They did Beatles tunes. On this particular album, Laura's theme, isn't that from Dr. Zhivago?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do Laura's theme. They do Hank Williams' House of Gold. They do John Prine's Paradise. They do
City of New Orleans. They used to do.
Yep, City of Orleans is a big one. On this album, they do Train Leaves Here This Morning, the Gene Clark, Bernie Red song, and they do songs that they've written themselves. One I specialize, you've mentioned the Carter family several times. They lived in Poor Valley, right?
Yeah.
In Virginia, Poor Valley. Yep. Norman Blake, who we've talked about a little bit here too, the great guitarist. He wrote Last Train from Poor Valley, which is a great tune. They do that on here. There's Norman. And so this was, to me, this is the best bluegrass band I've ever heard.
I was privileged to see them once. They were amazing with John Duffy and the original band. They were awesome.
The original band was just
and they were so good. They're so funny too. Like they were just incredible.
And you know why they call themselves the Seldom Seen was because most of them had, if not all of them, had full-time jobs.
Yeah.
So they were limited in how much they could they could get out on the road.
That's
the
neat.
Bluegrass Festival I've mentioned several times from my hometown was called the Eastern North Carolina Bluegrass and Folk Festival, outside of Angier, between Angier and Lillington. I live in Lillington, so it's just right between those two towns. And they billed that Seldom Seen were going to be there. And I was so excited. I was there Friday. I was ready for the Seldom Seen. And I kept asking, where's Seldom? Oh, they'll be here tomorrow. They'll be here tomorrow. And, it came back Saturday. Seldom Seen, when are they playing? When's their set? They just kept putting me off. What I discovered through a little investigation is lots of times at these bluegrass festivals, they'll put these playbills out there and they'll put a bunch of names of bands that are going to be there.
It's the wish list
that they haven't actually signed a contract with. And to get people to the crowd. And the guy that ran this one was a little bit sketchy, as booking agents and promoters are known to be sometimes. He was a little bit sketchy. The Seldom Seen, I was told, the Seldom Seen said, you send us a contract and you send us a check in advance and we'll be there. And they hemmed and hawed, oh, you come, I'll have the money and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
They were shrewd enough businessmen that they weren't going to show up, 400 miles from home on the assumption that guy was going to have a check for them for what they were supposed to make. So they never, I never got to see the Seldom Seen there.
Oh, incredible band. I love those guys.
They also do Hail to the Redskins on one of their albums. I forget which one.
Yeah, fan John Duffy, another legend. Yeah, amazing. Sam, you got any more?
Yeah, I'll do one more here, and like I said, I'll need to head out.
Yeah,
but
we'll go around. I'll do one, then Elliott can end it.
Okay. Let's see. I've got a couple here. I'll finish with Doc Watson, just because I feel like he needs to have his own little highlight here. And my dad has a funny Doc Watson story. He saw him again, for those I don't know, blind acoustic guitar phenom. Probably I would say Billy Strings, for those that know Billy Strings, probably his biggest influence. I remember the first time I heard Billy Strings, I thought he sounded so much like Doc just with his singing. His big song was Tennessee Stud. That was a hit. But my dad's story is, one of the times that he saw Doc, somebody yelled, play Tennessee Stud. He hadn't played it yet. He was already at that point in the 70s. And he said, "Oh no, we're not going to play that tonight." And he never did. That wasn't on the set list, and he didn't want to play it. I'm sure he was sick of it because he played it so much. But I mentioned earlier the song "Walk On Boy" that I first heard Tony Rice do. But Doc Watson's version of "Walk On Boy" is just a fantastic song. Just with that little, well, who is that fella Brown? Where he says that line.
Yeah.
And then that little lick, "Walk On Boy," down. Just again, one of those great non-traditional vocalists that had that great, picking style, and to be blind and to play at the level that, I will never touch Doc Watson. And I play guitar. I could play guitar for 3 lifetimes. I would never touch Doc Watson. That's just something you're born with. I wasn't born.
I don't know if anybody would.
No. And even I've seen, again, keep bringing back Billy Strings. I've seen him play, I think I've seen him play like Tony Rice's guitar before. And he was like, man, he was like afraid to play it, and Billy Strings, probably speed wise could probably put Tony Rice, in the back seat. But because he held him in such high regard, and same with Doc Watson, I think I've seen a similar thing. Those guys that are, the third generation now from those guys, those guys are on holy ground. You don't touch a Doc Watson guitar or a Tony Rice guitar, because they laid the groundwork for that style that's now, become more like the jam band kind of bluegrass music that's out there now, whether it's Billy Strings or, a Molly Tuttle, Sierra Farrell, Sierra Hull, any of those people that are in the scene now, and Old Crow. They all can, bow to Tony Rice and Doc Watson. But for those that don't know Doc, you got to listen to the song "Walk On Boy." It's just a fantastic tune. It sounds simple, the guitar playing, but it's not. So I'm gonna end with Doc Watson.
Wow. I got to see Doc a few times, and let's not forget his son Merle, who's maybe as good a guitar player as his dad. Slide guitar. I don't know if there was anybody better on acoustic slide guitar than Merle Watson. Oh, and my Doc Watson story is, I was living in Western Canada, Alberta. I was in Calgary, and Doc and Merle were playing at the University Theater out there. And I got tickets right away, and I was in the first row. And Doc and Merle come out, and they sit down in their chairs on the stage. And the first thing Doc says before he starts playing, "If anybody wants to come up on the stage and sit with us, feel free." I ran as fast as I could. I sat right at his feet. I was like 6 inches away from Doc Watson's guitar while he played all night long. One of the highlights of my life.
That's so cool.
Let's bring Flame and Groove, if he's still here kicking, watching this, because he's brought up a lot of the San Francisco type stuff. The famous Stanley Owsley, who was the king of LSD manufacturing, but also worked with the Grateful Dead. He was a sound engineer. He did all the soundboard recordings for a lot of the clubs and things in San Francisco. And in the last few years, his family found all his recordings, and they've been releasing a lot of them. They've released a Jefferson Airplane one, a Hot Tuna one, a Janis Joplin one, a few of them. But Doc and Merle played at a place called the Boarding House in May 1974. They were there for a week, and they had released this on a box set. You can buy this on vinyl or CD. I have the CD set.
I had to get that.
Fantastic. The sound is incredible. There's like I don't know how many CDs in here. It's just like It's just a wealth of dog. It's fantastic.
Wow.
Well worth getting. So yeah, Doc. Glad you mentioned Doc Watson.
What do they call? What is the name of that release?
What's the name of this? It's called the Bears Sonic Journals. That's Bear was Stanley Owsley's nickname.
Yeah.
Bears Sonic Journals. There's a whole bunch of them, but the Doc and Merle Watson one is exceptional.
I need to get that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to talk about Bela Fleck, but I'm not going to because I talk about him enough. I want to talk about this other female banjo player that I really just discovered maybe like 6 months ago. I don't know where I've been all these years, but her name is Kristen Scott Benson. She's currently the banjo player in the Grascals, which are a pretty good banjo player. She's married to Wayne Benson, who's a great mandolin player. Plays, I think, in Third Time Out. I think that's his band. Anyway, she's an amazing banjo player, and she has won Banjo Player of the Year, like I don't know how many times, like 5 times or something like that. She's really gifted. And I got a couple of her albums. This one called String Works, and this is her first album, I think, called Second Season. It's she's just a phenomenal player and does a lot of traditional stuff, and then a bit of more far out stuff, but mostly traditional stuff. And the cool thing was when I discovered her and found all these records. I'll mention Deering Banjos, which is American Banjo Company, which is probably making the most popular banjos nowadays. They have a show on YouTube called Deering Live. I don't know if you guys should check it out.
I've never heard of it.
They do it about every couple of weeks. They bring somebody in, a lot of banjo players, but they just did a recent one with Jerry Douglas, and they talk to them. It's just great. They get them to play a couple of songs and talk about their stuff and everything. It's great. Deering Live, look it up on thing. But that's when I first saw her, was on there, and I picked up all her CDs. There's 3 of them. I can't remember why I didn't bring the other one, but I went on her website and there was a contact thing. And there was an email, so I emailed her and just said, Kristen, I just wanted to say, I'm a banjo player, and I'm late to the party here, discovering you, but really, really digging your stuff. She sent me the nicest email back saying, thank you. That's so nice and everything, which is really cool. Again, bringing it back to the fact that these people are as normal and as you can get. I mean, so cool. So nice. And anyway, she's amazing. Kristen Scott Benson.
Very cool.
And we're going to let Elliott finish it off.
All right. I did an audible this time. I was going to show a Hot Rise album. Hot Rise is a great band. Check them out if you.
I saw them.
Hold on a second. Look at this. Bear Sonic Journals. Look at this dude. He was at one of those shows.
Oh wow, cool. Very cool.
Amazing.
One of the things I think I mentioned early in the show was growing up, and even today, when the communities have little festivals or street fairs or something like that, and usually there's a flatbed tractor trailer bed set up there on the street or something with some bands that will play throughout the day. And usually there's a bluegrass band somewhere in the mix. There'll be a bluegrass band, maybe a beach music band, and maybe some sort of a pop or rock band or something like that. But there was always seemed to be a bluegrass band in the mix. When I was about 13 or 14, we went to our street festival. It's probably the 4th of July. I don't really remember. And my friend Donald and I went there that afternoon, and they had the street closed off and had a flatbed sitting there, and there was a bluegrass band tuning up, getting ready to play. And we, being the obnoxious 13, 14-year-olds that we were, we got an idea. And my house was 3 blocks away. We ran back to the house, and my older brother had an album collection. I hadn't really started collecting yet, but he had some bluegrass albums. Everybody's seen this flat.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't actually the band that plays on the actual album in here. It's just a random picture of some configuration that they got. but it's a reissue of Flat and Scruggs, the original Foggy Mountain Breakdown. Well, we ran home, and my brother had, yeah, and yeah, with a little circle. we ran home, and me and Donald, and we went through my brother's collection, and we found this album and maybe one Bill Monroe record, a generic Bill Monroe record, and we looked at it, and we memorized as best we could, and our brains work better than they do now, and we memorized as best we could all the names of all the bluegrass songs on the album and on the Bill Monroe album. And we ran back to the show, and they were getting ready to start playing, and they started playing. And after the first song, we yelled out, "Cora's Gone, do Cora's Gone." Okay. And they did Cora's Gone. And then after that one, we yelled, Pike County Breakdown. And they did that. And we had memorized. And so,
that's funny.
So we were going through all these classic Flat and Scruggs and Bill Monroe songs, and they thought, these little obnoxious kids are bluegrass geniuses. They're just coming up with these names off the top of their head. So,
that's a fantastic story.
But so you pick up a little something like this, and you look at that cover and you go, "Oh, I don't want that record," But what's inside is not indicative of the cover. Oftentimes,
bluegrass music has some terrible covers.
They do, they really do.
Yeah, they Flat and Scruggs. Yeah, they got this in this one.
Yeah,
which is actually on the Harmony Columbia label. So, yeah, amazing.
Yeah, this
stuff.
one's Pickwick. Is your copy of this one Pickwick?
No, it's on Hilltop. I think I got an original.
It was previously released on Mercury Records, it says. Who knows how many times this thing was put out in some configuration or another.
This is called Hilltop Records.
Yeah,
I don't know them.
Mine's Pickwick. And it's electronically enhanced for stereo.
It says, it's in stereo. I don't know if the original one was probably mono.
Oh, yeah, it would have been mono. Who knows when this actually was recorded? Like
Previously released on Mercury Records, it says.
Yeah. And who knows, this could have, there's no telling when this was recorded and who the personnel were on this album, because it's just, they would just periodically, when Flat and Scruggs start getting more popular, this was obviously right after Bonnie and Clyde came out, because it's got the original Foggy Mountain Breakdown theme from Bonnie and Clyde. So, there's capitalizing on some renewed interest.
Yeah.
But yeah, those guys thought we were just bluegrass experts at
that's a great story.
7th grade, whatever we were in.
That's awesome. Wow. Rounder released a 12-track Bill Monroe LP with Flat and Scruggs in his band back in '78. I bought it when it came out. 12-track, interesting.
I think I've got that. I know that album he's talking about on Rounder. That is a good album. Yeah, I think I've got that one here somewhere.
Do you have any of the Bear family recordings, Elliott?
I think I might have some CDs from the Bear family. I don't think I've got any of their LPs.
They have a big. Didn't they put out with a big giant box set of Flat and Scruggs and stuff? They had some.
Probably. They've come up with so much good stuff over the years.
The Johnny Cash one's currently in my car.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You remember this guy? You remember the Lewis family?
Yeah, the Lewis family. Yeah.
Little Roy,
Little
banjo
Roy.
player. He was the front man for the band.
Yeah.
At the Bluegrass Festivals, the standard during that time in the mid 60s through the 70s, the standard procedure was that on Sunday morning you had a bluegrass gospel set. It was strictly gospel bluegrass. And usually the Lewis family led that because they were specifically a gospel bluegrass band. That Little Roy told the story about when Flat and Scruggs had a TV show in Atlanta or something, and they wherever they were on the road, they had to be at the TV studio
Yeah.
at a certain time on a certain day to film the show. And Little Roy grew up out in the country, you know, in Georgia somewhere. And he and his brothers, I guess, they would either walk or get on their bicycles and ride to the highway, which was miles and miles from their home, to the highway, and wait by the side of the road as that big Flatt and Scruggs tour bus would come by at the same time each week, and they would wave at them.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So they were getting their inspiration just by seeing the darn tour bus.
Amazing. Guys, this was like so enjoyable. This is one of my favorite chats I've ever done. Amazing. Thank you.
It was a good time.
I have really enjoyed it.
Me too. I thank you guys so much. We should do this like on a monthly basis or something.
I hope we can inspire some people that watch this.
I hope so
to
too.
dig deeper into the bluegrass genre, because it is a wonderful and deep and very, very genre.
Very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I like when you said it's a varied genre. It's not. Don't just think it's you know, some high pitched squeal and a bunch of hillbillies. It's not.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. What's that is to Molly Tuttle live stream right now.
Maybe there's a she's
must
live
be
streaming,
doing
I
live
guess.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Well, again, thank you guys so much. Thanks everyone who watched. Much appreciated. This will be up for your viewing pleasure for the next 100 years. So everything's good. We're going to say goodnight. Thank you, Elliott. Thank you, Sam.
Much enjoy, Glenn, Sam.
Good to see you, Elliott.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay,